Mr. Hanley won't be joining us this evening. As soon as everybody sits down, we'll rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Miss Patricia Reed. Well, you could have stayed right there, but I'm glad you came all the way up forward.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If we all could remain standing for a moment of silence for two Warrenites, son of Betty and Dave Johnson, Josh Johnson, former town employee, passed away, and Michael Gerhart, the vice chair of the planning board. Thank you. So it's great to see Pat Reed. She's 90 something, I bet. She really is. Yeah. So I also like to thank everybody who shoveled from Water Street to here, because it was nice to be able to walk on the sidewalks. And I'll take this opportunity to remind everyone that snow is the responsibility of everyone in the town of Warren. Our DPW does the best job they can. And by ordinance, we're all supposed to shovel in front of our house. And it wasn't so bad. First, we have public comment, and this is an opportunity for the public to speak on a matter, bring it to the council's attention. No council action can be taken, but it's delivered to the full ears of the town. And Mr. Ned McGreevy wrote us earlier, and he would like to share some of his positions with us. Ned, feel free. Sure, up here. You state your name and address. And we usually go about 3 minutes,
Okay.
but you know, you don't have much competition tonight, so I can give you a little wiggle
It should
room.
be 3 minutes or 5 or so. Yeah. I want to thank you first for the opportunity to speak,
Of course.
Councilwoman Cronin and councilmen. And thank you for your service. I know this is often a thankless job, I'm sure, and long into the night and the weekends and so on. But I also wanted to take the opportunity particularly to express I was sad to learn about Ed Cabral leaving the Harbor Masters office. I didn't know until I went to see them this Saturday that he was done. We're standing at the door and I'm waiting. He says, "You're waiting for Joe?" Or I said, "No, I'm waiting for you." And it turns out that he resigned. I mean, one of the good ones, you know, always courteous, professional. He was the best. And as I'm sure Joe Silva, who was his deputy and has several years experience, right?
He's here this evening. I'm sure
On
it's
the
good to hear.
at the Harbor Master's office, it will probably continue. And now I'm naming names. Dina Larson, a neighbor of mine, these guys give tirelessly and they're appreciated. My concerns are about violations of town ordinances, two in particular, Chapter 10, which is harbors and vessels, and Chapter 12, which is traffic and such vehicles and traffic or something like that. Anyway, there have been 5 outhauls down at the bottom of our neighborhood on the corners of at Clark Road and Bay Road, none of which have been permitted. The CRMC's got no documentation of them. The Harbor Master's office has none yet. They've sat there for more than 20 years. I've asked about them and wondered how or where they came from. Came to find out they were put there in sometime after 2001, a former property owner of 13 Bay Road who put the dock in across the street into the Kiki, which was permitted by CRMC in 2001. But the 5 yellow pine pilings that were driven in to either side of it were not. 3 of those, particularly egregiously, are right from the Clark Road, town of Warren right of way. And I would suggest that they're blatantly illegal. There's no record of them, and yet they've, sat there for 20 years. And they're obstructing Rhode Islanders and Warrenites unfettered access to the water there. I've gone down with my dog at the right tide and seen him get tangled up in the lines. My wife has mentioned swimming. She swims a lot, and the tide can push you into those pilings, which don't belong there, and so on. The people that are using them is interestingly, especially the three in the right of way, have no connection with riparian rights or the contiguous owner's right to put outholes in. Yet there they are. I'm even told recently that one of them doesn't have a boat anymore, so he's allowed his buddy to use his. So now we have transference of moorings. That is also another violation of things. It's been a long time, and it's only looking the other way that's prevented these from being looked at. I provided you with the 3-page sort of synopsis as well as I could on these things, so I don't want to take the time of the meeting. But in chapter 12, motor vehicles and traffic as well, I looked closely, and I've tried this for years, to where are these no parking either sides coming from? Who, Department of Public Works, I've looked here, and there doesn't seem to be a viable answer. If you take from Patterson Avenue to Overhill Road, the north and southern boundaries, respectively, and Metacom Ave down to the Kickie, the westerly and easterly, respectively, boundaries, about a quarter square mile. There's 18 or 20 streets down there. And on the list in the ordinances are these, lists of designated one-ways and also lists of prohibited parking, particularly none on either side. The rules are such that east and west running streets, you can park legally on the west side. I believe it is north and south running streets, only on the north, not both. However, for years, from where Bay Road turns south, there have been these no parking either side because a lot of the people don't want to see cars there. I live there too. I've been here 38 years. I don't particularly want to see them either, but it's not my right to post signs to tell people they can't park there. Yet there they've been, on telephone poles all the way down to Clark Road. And on the bottom of Laurel Lane, from Monroe Avenue down to the LPIA parking lot, no parking either side, no parking either side. None of these streets in this square mile or quarter mile of the 18 or 20 streets is on the list of designated one-ways or prohibited parking. Yet here are these signs. And there's another one on Fairview Avenue, which used to be just on the Harding, the north end where it joins Harding Avenue. Do not enter. I just noticed coming back from the grocery store with milk, there's a somewhat newer one-way on the corner of Fairview and Laurel Lane. I don't know how new, but I do know that the do not enter went in there when a former councilman built his home on this street. It's the only one of all of the streets in this quadrant of 18 to 20 streets that's one way. Others are smaller, dirt roads, narrower. I don't know what the safety reason or was floated for these things happening, but I also collected about 8 or 10 signatures. I'll get a few more. It was suggested by the Harbor Master's office. We don't know about these outholes. If you can show somebody besides you that's interested in righting these wrongs, which I did. I'll bring to their office next Saturday. They only open, as you know, 3 hours on Saturday. And, I would just suggest that what's the saying? Justice delayed is justice denied. But, I implore the council, the only way that these types of misdeeds and, the doings of corrupt men can prevail is when good men do nothing. And I'm asking you to do something about this. And that's
Well,
in a nutshell.
thank you for bringing these 2 issues forward. And you really don't have to continue with other departments because what you've done tonight is publicly put it on the record. And we will instruct the manager. I mean, in your presentation itself, you've pretty much instructed the manager and our solicitor to look into these. And if indeed they agree with you that they're not on the books, well, the right action will be taken.
I appreciate that. Well, I may bring it down Saturday if it's okay, just because
I
I've
mean,
done it.
Believe me, I'm not telling you you can't continue
Yeah.
to do whatever you want, but in your statement, you
No, I
said
do
you were going to
appreciate that.
continue bringing it to other departments.
Yeah.
Well, right here is pretty much everything.
Pretty
you-
much it, right? No, I
Everybody who
appreciate the
needs to hear
opportunity.
it works under these people. So
Right.
thank you for bringing these
Yeah, you bet.
forward.
Thank you, Joe.
And yeah, if they're wrong, we'll write them.
Okay, thank you much.
Take care.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else who would like to bring an issue forward? Ms. Flanagan, please.
Really quick, sorry. Jen
Take your
Flanagan,
time.
46 Washington Street. I'm glad you brought up the sidewalks shoveling. And this may have already been addressed. I didn't see it after the snow, but the town common and in front of the armory typically is not shoveled. And those are both town properties. And I was hoping they could be shoveled and I can't get to it myself.
I can speak for the common, which
Okay.
was to bare
Okay.
pavement. What was your other one?
The armory,
The Armory, I can't speak of, although it's a public building.
It's
It's
managed by
leased,
the-
so
yeah.
we'll get word out to whoever that,
Tim Prey.
it was shoveled. So we have,
Okay,
we actually have a new deep, well,
Yeah.
new kind of, because we haven't had snow for a long time. And he's taken the reins and
great. Okay, thank you.
thank you. You know, anybody with a problem or a concern, don't feel like you're out of line. Sometimes this is the only way we can know, is to have people bring these issues forward. So I appreciate it. Anybody else? So we'll close the public comment period and we'll move on to presentation, the Warren Housing Production Plan and Story Map by Weston and Sampson. Susan Mara, is Miss Mara here? Hello. Is there
Good evening.
anything you would
Yeah.
like us to do for you?
Um,
You already done a rehearsal?
she's already got it set up over there and she's gonna click for me, so
Okay.
I think I should be okay.
Well, thank you.
Okay, good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Susan Mara. I work for the firm of Weston and Sampson. I'm a planner. I'm an AICP certified planner. I've been a planner for about 20 years. We were hired by the town of Warren to prepare a housing production plan through the Rhode Island Housing's Municipal Technical Assistance Program. So that's a program that Rhode Island Housing had where towns could ask for funding where they would pay for some work to be done on their behalf. And this was through Herb when he was here. Next slide, please. So we did two things. We created a report, which we provided to the town manager, and I'm not sure if he shared yet, but yeah. And we also prepared what's called a story map, which is a website. And so after tonight, I think we're going to work with the town administrator and we will figure out how to get those live and out to the public. So when Herb hired us, or when the town hired us, we were tasked with doing a housing production plan, which is generally a plan that looks at what your housing needs, not just in the lens of the 10% sort of state mandated rule, but a more comprehensive look into what the local affordable housing needs are. And the town was pretty clear that they wanted not just to know how to get to the 10%, but to really understand how to serve the needs for Warren residents. So that was our task. So we worked with the town, we worked with the housing authority, and we also worked with the East Bay CAP and the health equity zone to, learn more about what's going on locally. Next slide, please. As I said, we prepared a report and also a website, which will have basically all of the information from the report online. We also took some drone footage while we were here just to have some more sort of interesting graphics for our website. And the day that we were here was a day that Herb was looking to look at the tower and so we were able to send up the drone to do some recon on the tower to give him some information for repointing. So that was a nice, happy coincidence. Next slide, please. So I'm not going to be telling anybody here anything you don't already know. But I suppose it's good to see the facts and figures. It's helpful in terms of telling the story. It's helpful in terms of crafting your policies, asking for grant funding. So it says 41% of renters, so that's like just under half of your renters, and 19% of homeowners spend more than 30% of their income on housing. And that 30% is something that's used by the feds and also by the states to sort of measure, at one point when housing becomes unaffordable. You know, they're thinking, or they're, you know, extrapolating that if you're spending more than 30% of your income on housing, you're struggling to find the money to pay for other things. So another sort of key finding from this report is that the renter median income in Warren is much lower than your average median income for homeowners. So if you see up there, it's 39,000 versus 113,000. And that 39,000 for median renters income is some of the lowest in the East Bay. So that was, you know, that's interesting. And I think that's important in how you sort of approach your strategy for affordable housing. We also, again, this is probably something that the town is very familiar with. There are more older adults comparatively to some of these other communities. Compared to, say, like Barrington, for example, their need for affordable housing is really centered around family housing. That's not really true in Warren. It's more for older adults. And we'll go through some more statistics in terms of, you know, what that like specific need really looks like. The other key finding, and again, the town's very much aware of this, you did your market to Medicom study a few years ago. The flood-prone area in Market Street contains a lot of renters and a lot of lower income renters. So it's sort of a, you know, it's an interesting another layer of things that, you know, is, you know, sort of involved in the strategy around affordable housing. Next slide, please. So housing types across the region. There's a lot. I'm going to go through a couple of graphs. I will just kind of go through them quickly, not to bore you with data, but just, you know, these are some of the more interesting things that we found that I think are really important to, you know, how you approach affordable housing in Warren. You see that blue bar on Warren is sort of the shortest. And, you know, those are all bars that represent, you know, Barrington and Bristol and Jamestown. The single family attached housing is less in Warren than it is for any of these other communities, except maybe Newport, which also has quite a bit of renter housing. Next slide, please. And then owner versus renter. You know, your percentage of owner is proportionally a lot lower than some of these other communities. And again, this kind of goes towards like the type of affordable housing that's needed in different communities. You know, in a Barrington or, you know, Portsmouth, Tiverton, they're looking, their need is around family housing, not necessarily around rental housing. Next slide, please. Renter household sizes. This one's a little harder to read, but basically the household size for renters in Warren is smaller than the other communities. This is another sort of like piece of that data that shows that there's a lot of people living alone, renters living alone or in 2-family apartments compared to a lot of other communities that have a lot of larger units, 3 units, 4 units, 5 units, or bedroom units. Next slide, please. Household sizes. This, you know, sort of has the same sort of findings. It's not as apparent in the owner household sizes. It's more of a factor that we've seen in the rental households, that the household size is much smaller. It's a little bit true for owners, but not nearly as much as it is for renters. Next slide, please. Prices and rents. This is not news to this board or to anyone in the state of Rhode Island or anyone in New England or, you know, across the nation. Incomes are not keeping up with housing costs. So since 2012, this is really interesting, right? So the housing prices rose 128% and the wages only rose 49%. So that affordability is getting worse, and our projections have, you know, no indication that it's going to get better. Again, this is not a locally specific issue. This is something I think that everyone is grappling with, but, you know, seeing the data sometimes can help to really reinforce that. Next slide, please. We talked about the housing burden. So that's the housing cost burden. So those are like what percentage of people, you know, of owners and renters in Warren are paying more than that 30% for housing costs. You know, for owners, it's about 20%, but for renters, it's 41%. That's a pretty big chunk. And so it seems from the data we looked at, the market doesn't provide enough housing for workers or for seniors, first-time home buyers. And we looked at the market to Medicom plan. You know, climate is going to further restrain that as flooding happens and climate change happens. And some of these areas where there are a fair amount of rental housing are going to be inundated and unlivable ultimately. Next slide, please. So I promise this is the last piece of data that you'll have to look at. This, I mean, this just shows, you know, in Warren, like the number of households with lower income make up kind of a bigger proportion of the town than do some of your neighbors, like the Tivertons and the Newports and the Portsmouths. Like a lot of those towns have a lot more households with those higher income brackets. So that's important to consider when you're putting together your affordable housing strategy. Next slide, please. Market to Medicom, I think we talked about this briefly. So that's the Market Street area that's in red, and then there's the Medicom area in orange. And the purpose of this plan was to look at this Market Street area because the flooding in this area over the next 25 or 50 years is going to be so extensive that some of those homes will no longer be able to be habitable. And so that plan, which the town did, they worked with another firm, Fuss & O'Neill, to put this together. They were trying to think about and proactively think about, you know, what are some things that we can do to sort of address this in the future. And so what they had proposed was to look at that area of Medicom and try to build that out and increase housing there. Again, that wasn't part of this plan, but it's, I think, important to recognize that the climate change and flooding is going to make this issue of providing affordable housing even more complicated. Next slide, please. Yep, so that's 800 residents and 541 households. That those sort of colors there represent times in the future where that area will be flooded. Again, that wasn't part of this effort, but we didn't want to ignore that. So this is just some information that we're providing to give you some context. Next slide, please. So key findings, more of the same, right? So there are a fair amount of Warren households, and that's, they say, below 80% area median. That's AMI, is area median income. That's the phrase that they use at the federal level and the state level to sort of talk about, you know, affordability. The area median income is obviously the median income for an area, and you know, 80% of that is 80% of that. But at some point, affordability starts to kick in when it comes and it gets lower to the 30 to 50% range. And the way the state law is set up, that your comprehensive permits where you're required to provide a certain amount of affordable housing are allowed to build that housing at those sort of higher income levels where the need, and you know, we've demonstrated, I think, that the need in Warren would be for housing for income levels that are lower than that, like more to 30 to 50% of the area median income. Again, just things to consider when you're thinking about, you know, how to strategize around affordable housing. Next slide, please. So comprehensive permits, which I'm sure folks on the council are pretty aware of how comprehensive permits work in Rhode Island. You know, they are a fact of life. They're enabled by state law. You can't actually see the small inset there, but we were looking at where your progress is towards your 10%. And I think it's just under 4% right now, but it has actually gone down in the last 20 years. And that happens because, you know, the requirement for affordable housing is that it's deed restricted. A lot of the housing that gets built with state and federal grants is 30-year deed restricted. And so they do eventually age out. And so if that happens slowly over the years, you kind of lose ground as far as where you are towards that 10%. And that 10% is important. Again, I know you all know this because once you reach that, you're no longer subject to the comprehensive permits. So next slide, please. And the last part of our report is our toolbox, which is basically a number of different types of interventions and strategies that we recommend that the town could do if it felt it was a good use of their resources to address the needs. And we tried to include a number of different types of interventions and to gear them towards the specific need in Warren, which again, isn't necessarily like multifamily housing, but affordable housing for seniors, smaller units, for older Warren residents. And then also considering the impact of climate change locally. So that in a nutshell is what the report is about. And as I mentioned, there's a website too that we've built that we can share out. And if there are any questions about our data or our recommendations, we're more than happy to hear them tonight. Or if you want to spend some time, once you look at the report and give us some comments.
Are there any questions from the council?
No, thank you. This is a get in a nutshell.
It's a lot of data.
It's a lot of data. and
yeah.
It doesn't feel like there's a lot here that is like, oh my God, shocking, because we've been
Sure.
steeping in this
Yeah.
for so long now. I do like sorry, I'm not speaker not on, trying to push. Anyways, hopefully it's getting recorded. I do like, the the idea or the concept of, rather than the deed restrictions of creating some just permanent affordability, that I've not heard it really sort of written or voiced that way instead of the 30-year restrictions. So
30 years does sound like a long time, but as you've seen, if it's like a lot of the housing was built in
Yeah.
the 70s and they're coming offline now. And so a lot of communities are sort of losing ground towards that goal.
yeah.
Mr. Rego?
I guess I have one question. It used to be like 4%. Last year, they changed it. They allowed housing choice vouchers. Is that included in your?
It is. I think the number, and it changes pretty regularly. And I think Kristen is here. She might have a better data, but the number we have most recently is like just under 4%. Okay. I'll take a look with the new legislation, making sure we count them. But no, that's a positive thing that counting of the housing choice vouchers.
And Mr. Trombley?
Thank you. Could you elaborate on the expansion of accessory dwelling units? I have an item on tonight's agenda about that very topic. Can you explain why that is a good tool for Warren to adopt?
That can be a good tool because it allows families to age in place a little bit. There are a lot of people who are trying to stay in their communities that are aging out and maybe not able to cover the cost of their housing and property taxes. And so allowing the ADUs on both ends allows, families to continue to house some of their relatives, but also can provide a source of income for people who live there and want to remain there, but maybe on their own would not be able to afford to stay in a town like Warren. It's tricky, right? Because anything that you introduce can have some unintended consequences. So I think, as long as there are standards around it that, consider context, right? Consider parking requirements, consider design requirements. They can be a very, very good tool.
Thank you.
Anyone in the department heads? Anyone from the public?
Just have one question. Is there, I'm not seeing the detailed study in front of me, is there a fairly decent, comprehensive data of, single family homes, multifamily homes, rental units, that type of data?
We do have some of that data in there. Yeah. And some of those graphs did sort of summarize it, but we have, even if the report doesn't include the tables that you want, we probably have pulled down the data and can share it.
Well, thank you, Ms. Mara. Is there anything else you would?
Ms. Mead.
Oh, thank you.
There's between buildable land versus, in our town versus other towns. Also, was there any count taken of naturally occurring affordable housing?
So we did not do an analysis of buildable land in Warren versus the other towns. And the other question was about the naturally occurring affordable housing. So that gets to, right? So that 4% is the regular affordable housing, like the big A affordable housing that is deed restricted and subsidized. Looking at the number of rentals sort of gives you an idea of naturally occurring affordable housing. I think the more multifamily that a town has, like the more naturally occurring affordable housing that exists. I don't know how else to quantify it. Because it's not deed restricted, right? It's just, but yes, we did look at the proportion of rental and multifamily in Warren compared to the other communities in the region. And that kind of gives you an idea. And you're right, there is more in Warren than there are in other communities, because you have more rental and because you have more multifamily.
What you're saying on a gross basis, not necessarily percentage basis or proportionately or.
Proportionately, if you look at some of the graphs, like that's kind of what we did is to try and show Warren has less single family housing proportionally than the other towns and cities in the region. That suggests that there is more naturally occurring affordable housing.
And yet we aren't meeting that need.
That's right. I mean,
By definition.
that's one of the conclusions we came up with. And like the demographics that we talked about is that those rental units don't necessarily need to be family units. It looked like a lot of the current renters were either 1 or 2 bedrooms. And your demographics for your town show an older population, less families with children, more older folks living on their own. Like that seemed to be the biggest need that we from the data.
Thank you. Well, sure, you can ask one more. You can use my question.
Way of measuring how many affordable units, when I say affordable, not subsidized, but people that have been there for a long time, paying way under market value. Is there a way of measuring that?
I think that's what she was kind of getting at too, right? That she called it like naturally occurring affordable housing. So you're asking, we can look, there are data points that Zillow has in some of those rental, in some of those like real estate sites
Again,
around.
How?
Yeah. No, I know it doesn't count, right? So you're talking like small A affordable housing. It's not deed restricted. It's not subsidized. It's just,
Someone has been there for a long time.
yeah, we did look at the rental rates. We didn't necessarily pull out like and make a decision of which ones are, below market value, but I could look at what we did in the report and see if there's a way to understand that a little better.
We have old data, Mr. Rego, and we can probably get that information from Mr. Abruzzi. When Michelle Maha was our planner, we spent a little bit of money and a lot of time and did a survey of our own, trying to give an educated reason why we wanted the law changed. I think we were almost at 15%.
With your naturally occurring, like,
Looking at the apartments available,
Yeah,
housing stock
yeah.
available that would meet if they
yeah,
changed some of the.
some of the
so
rules. Right. I know.
We
yeah.
tried for years. We're still trying.
Yeah, I understand. I understand. It's,
The biggest barrier to affordable housing is the definition and the
Yeah.
one size that fits all. It's just impeding towns on their ability to use their comp plans and to figure out what's best for themselves, being told by the state what to do. And it doesn't necessarily fit. And we're over here saying we want to.
yeah. And
We like people living in Warren.
the issue with the comp permits too is that, when you do 25% of the development as affordable housing, right? Like say you get 10 new affordable units, you're still adding to the denominator, right? So like, even though you add 10, like,
I've had this discussion.
yeah, no, it is tough. It is tough. So it's almost like a fully affordable development, 100% affordable, like those kind of developments will help you get there faster. But you're right, like, making decisions about where it should be, whether it should be in areas that are already serviced by transit or by sidewalks and, other infrastructure.
I
where
think
you,
the state is starting to get a handle on that.
yeah,
We met with the state commission, what was that, 6-8 months ago? They were here. They seem to have open ears. They seem to have some enthusiasm.
Yeah,
They actually said that what we're saying right now, they heard the loudest from Warren, and it was interesting, and we weren't one of their first stops. We were closer to like one of their last stops, I think.
Yeah.
yeah.
That was interesting. I mean, in regards to at least we're not getting much support, but we're sending the message out that we need help in the definition because we want to comply. It's sad because we work so hard on our comprehensive plan and we work so hard trying to maintain development in the right places and trying to create zoning maps that encourage commercial, not at
And
the
protect
impact
the
of
sensitive
residential.
areas. I get it. Yeah.
As
this is-
well as our sensitive
Yeah.
ecological areas. So thank you. And
Okay.
we have one more question and we'll close with Mr. Olivera.
Or I guess a comment, like when again, I'm not an expert in housing, but I've been involved in this quite a bit. The one thing I think that's the elephant in the room that's never addressed is basic economic supply and demand. People want to live in the East Bay. We have a lot of people from Boston, a lot of people from New York. You look at these transactions that are happening in our town. I don't know the exact figure, but I bet you find the majority are not local people buying our properties. So we can add all the properties we want. We're trying to say, hey, we'd like to have a family stay nearby. People are coming from out of town and wildly overbidding, then how do we correct that? Like a dog chasing its tail. So I just want to mention that because in all these different, I've been to different symposiums, if you will, and they talk about all these wonderful things, but no one talks about if people want to be in your area and willing to pay for it, how do you stop that? How do you stop the corporations from buying and renting out? How do you, this is a problem happening all over Rhode Island, but no one ever talks about that because you can't really stop it, but it's a problem and that's adding to our problem.
Correct. Correct. Everybody doesn't want somebody to live in next to them that they don't like, but when it comes time to sell their house, they want top dollar. And that, as you say, competes with the planning. So thank you. And
Thank you.
I hope you feel good about what you've done. We think it's good. So thank you.
We do. Like, Herb was really adamant that he didn't want something that's just going to talk about that 10% number, but really understand what the needs are, which I think we did. And so I think, the tools that we're recommending, may help to.
Yeah, we're going to
get
use
there.
this. It's not just going to sit on a shelf. So
I'm really, that
we're
would
going
make
to
us very
continue
happy.
to fight the good fight.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
you.
Thank you. Next, we have interviews. Discussion and action on an associate municipal court judge. No applicant. Juvenile hearing board, no applicant. Rec board, no applicant. Planning board. For an alternate position, and Mr. Tim White applied, and we received a letter that unfortunately had a death in the family. He couldn't be here this evening. My memory doesn't serve me well in regards to, did Mr. White
He did interview.
on for another board?
No, he said he interviewed for that position and then the position was taken by someone else and he said he'd accept the alternate position. So
Okay.
I would be good with that.
So that does help us in making a decision. What's the,
I make a motion to appoint Tim White as an alternate to the planning board.
is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Next, we have 250th Commission, 3 positions. 3 positions available. I don't see my resignation. I missed it when,
It's in
It was
correspondence.
there.
oh, it's in correspondence. Good, thank you. So I'm resigning from that board because I kind of feel that if I can't be at the meeting, I shouldn't take up an empty space. So hopefully somebody will move forward. So is Mr. McPhillips, or Mr. McPhillips, please come forward. Thank you. And you'll do a better job than me, because you'll be there.
I hope so. I'm Ken McPhillips from 42 Truman Avenue.
Mr. McPhillips has given probably half his life or his whole life to the town of Warren. Any questions? If not, I make a
I'll make-
motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Ken. Phineas Audette. Mr. Audette here.
do not see him.
Mr. Chair, I received correspondence from Mr. Audette that says that he is unable to attend the meetings. He has a conflict, so he will withdraw his nomination to the board.
Okay. Duly noted. Without prejudice. Next, we have the Tax Board of Assessment Review, no applicants. We have the Warren Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board of Directors, one position available, no applicants. Next, we have the acceptance of minutes.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Trombley.
May I make a motion to re-advertise the vacant positions that were not filled?
Very well.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Hi.
And now we have the acceptance of the January 14th, 2025 regularly scheduled meeting minutes, which I cannot participate in. I was absent.
I'll make a motion on that.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Hi.
Okay, next we have the acceptance of the February 3rd, 2025 special legislative workshop minutes.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Hi.
Thank you. Next, we have the consent agenda. All items listed with an asterisk are considered to be routine. Is there a motion to accept the consent agenda?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Hi.
Thank you. Next, we have, turn the page. Request for a mobile food establishment, and that's a permit from Meat Sweats, Rhode Island. Is Mr. Cowell here? Hello. Please come on down, describe what you're doing and take the opportunity for the viewing public to want to see your truck out on the streets. Please tell
So
us.
I have a food truck and I'm looking to get a permit. I work with PBD Food Events and they set up a couple events in the town of Warren. And I need to have my permits, of course, to be able to join them in that.
And what will you be serving?
I serve steak and cheese sandwiches,
Okay.
lobster, chicken sandwiches, mainly subs,
All right,
very large subs, and all grilled items.
sounds good. Any
I
questions?
just have a question. Do we have a limit on as far as how many we can give out permits for food vendors?
No.
No.
I'll make a motion.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we have request for a Class F beverage license from Mr. Olivera. If you could come forward, please.
Good evening.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
You can have the opportunity to take a minute to explain
Yes,
what it is you'll be doing and why you need a license.
yes. So I represent the Warren Citizens for Appropriate Development. I'm the president of the group. And we're having a fundraiser on March the 1st at Fredericks Farm. We're having a dinner there called Dinner at the Farm. We are going to have, we have various folks donating the prepared foods that we've asked for donations. So they'll be bringing food in, and we would like the opportunity to also provide beer or wine to the folks that are coming. It's a limited number of tickets, yeah, it's basically a fundraiser for
For
our.
your cause, for our cause. Any questions? Any questions? Any discussion over there? No? Okay. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Hi.
Thank you.
Good luck. Let's hope it doesn't rain. I mean, I'm sure it's inside, right? March 1st?
Yeah.
Yeah, but still, right? Right? Who likes rain? So next we have correspondence. These items can, if anybody wants to pull an item from correspondence, we can. I think we should pull C4,
I'd like to pull C5.
C5,
Just
okay.
Send a letter of great thanks to that
How
wonderful.
about if we just say it? Thanks, Joe. We didn't go to any
I never
meetings.
attended one meeting, so we're going to save the town a
Why
stamp.
not?
And
Very-
thank you, though, for the, so C4, can we, we'll pull C4. Is there a second?
Second.
Let me look at it.
Nobody wants to second my motion?
I
She
just
just
did.
did.
All right, so you made the motion. Is there a second?
Oh, second.
Okay. And on correspondence, is there a motion to accept?
Motion.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. The reason we pulled I pulled C4 is it is a resolution in support of full funding of categorical transportation aid as outlined in Rhode Island General Law 1672-6. And it is from Charahoe Regional School District. And they have a resolution here. Mr. DeSisto, do I have to read the whole resolution?
No.
Because it's not on our agenda and we will make one for next month, correct?
Yes.
So all of you take a minute to read it or on your own leisure. It's something we've supported in the past. Basically, we're asking the state to give us all the aid for transportation because we're a regionalized school. And it's a good thing. Hopefully it'll pass, but it's been an issue for many, many years. And sometimes we make that motion and sometimes they make that motion. So next, we're going to go into old business. Discussion and action regarding Town of Warren wastewater treatment operator, which is the H2O Innovation and Sinagro. And that's going to be done by our manager, Mr. Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the council. If you recall, at the last meeting, we had a presentation by H2O concerning sludge disposal. And at that time, we talked about the possibility of having a contract with the Cranston facility, which was run by Veolia. We had a conference call with Veolia. They are still working. They still have us slated to go there, but they are working some internal paperwork prior to being able to have a discussion with us about the fees with that. So hopefully we will have, or I will have some more information for you next month concerning this.
Are we still able to get rid of our sludge?
Yes, so we're still able to get our sludge to Woonsocket.
Okay,
So Woonsocket is still accepting it. And we still have a contract with Sinagro.
Sinagro, yep.
But we still have a contract with them until the end of June. So we have a place to get rid of our sludge.
Okay. Next, update on Town of Warren State Road Maintenance, upkeep and safety improvements. Pedestrian crosswalks at Crossroads Restaurant, Market Street Pub, and at the top of Miller Street. Move the location of the crosswalk on Main Street closer to the corner. Repair and paint the traffic light on Main and Market. Clean state sidewalks. What's the update on?
So I have sent a letter to the State Traffic Commission requesting crosswalks at the Market Street Pub and Crossroads Restaurant as well. I have also sent them a letter requesting the crosswalk be moved from a little bit closer, probably 8 feet or so closer to Market Street on Main Street as well. Have them take a look at that. And I apologize, I didn't quite understand the traffic light situation. I thought it was an actual pole that was broken, and I was looking for a pole on the street, and I didn't see it. But then I had a conversation with both the president and Councilman Rigo, and it's the base of one of the poles that needs to be. So I will begin to work on that this week. So I apologize for the.
That's
the
okay. They
confusion.
don't exist. They really are out of production.
Oh, they do? Oh, okay.
Yeah, they broke, that was a car accident about 4 years after they went in. And we tried, they came down, they said, oh yeah, we don't have any more. And that was probably in 2006.
Okay.
But the light posts all need to be painted and stuff,
Yes,
so.
yes. And I'm working with Mr. Wheeler on trying to figure out exactly who is responsible for that upkeep. So I think we're getting like
Oh yeah,
this.
good luck. We've been calling the state for years.
I just.
Yes, Ms.
comment.
Cronin.
So the moving of the location of the crosswalk on Main Street closer to the corner makes zero sense. Council President Di Pasquale and I walked that the other day. And where that crosswalk is placed currently, while not ideal, there are curb cuts there that start where that crosswalk is, that go in a straight line directly across the street to the corner on the in front of the
West side.
on the west side, in front of the church there. There's a curb cut there. To move it closer to the corner would require additional curb cuts, or if it went to the other side of the street, would require curb cuts. It makes no sense to even request that, because they're not gonna, RIDOT is not gonna do that. They are not gonna move that. It does not help. Is it like I said, is it an ideal, safe situation? No, but that intersection was created when there were horses going down the street. They will not do it, and it will not improve safety or traffic flow or pedestrian flow. It won't.
John, can I say something?
Sure.
So we've had no churn on red for years and years and years, maybe 30, 40, 50, ever since I can remember on that spot.
You mean on Miller?
On Miller's, on the top of Market to the right.
Market is
that's
3
new.
years old.
That's brandy new.
No, we were
Miller.
allowed to churn on
Oh,
red
you
for
were allowed-
years
yes,
and years
yes.
and years. And then when they put a no churn on red, I even called you. And you gave me a good reason. You said the reason why they did that is because people are stopped at Market Street, cannot see the people gonna cross. So the whole idea. behind-
Pedestrian
The
crossing.
pedestrian crossing.
Yes.
Okay, if you go in other communities, you're gonna see yield on red because you can see the person crossing. So the idea there is if you can move it over where you're able to see the person on a crosswalk, they may be able to change it back to where they allow you to yield on red. That is the idea. And that's the reason I put it.
It's a good idea. And we've had the discussion of, without being there, we thought maybe it would be better to move the crosswalk to other side of the street. And that can't happen because we went and looked at it. It was on our walk home from the legislative meeting. You see that where it is, it wouldn't work. There's parking, there's issues. So I applaud your persistence and all of our persistence on trying to figure out a better. So in that conversation, maybe you could say, we know it's not just a matter of paint, because it wouldn't mean brick and mortar. You would have to redesign that. So that's what we're kind of looking for, is possibly a redesign of that intersection we've been asking for forever.
And if it takes a curb cut, then let them do the curb cut.
Or even if it takes the light at Child,
Yeah.
let it stop at Child and.
So I would say to continue to pursue that.
Yes. So cleaning state sidewalks.
Again, that, we had the discussion last Monday about that, trying to get that legislation, passed through, that the state would be responsible for the upkeep and cleaning of sidewalks. So, obviously, they're supposed to clean them once a year.
Yes.
annually, But this would be for the maintenance of day-to-day maintenance of those sidewalks.
Correct.
No.
So keep knocking on that door.
Yes.
Discussion and action regarding the new State Transportation Improvement Program, STIP, which you may hear us using.
So, Mr. Wheeler and I, last week, we were, on a conference call with, statewide planning, I believe it was it statewide planning?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we left a little bit more confused than we started. We have a call in for them to schedule a one-on-one to figure out the actual process to make this work. And then I believe we'll present to you the potential projects for your ordering of top priorities, so we can request that through the state.
The seminar that we had, that they had us, it was a website that Mr. Wheeler will be able to log into and put in requests for the statewide transportation program, the STIP program. And also put in there our priorities, and we know that our priority right now is Market Street, paving of Market Street from, is it Market Street? Yes, Market Street from,
Schoolhouse to,
no, Main to,
Basically, the
Main to
yeah,
Schoolhouse.
yeah, Schoolhouse, correct, yes.
Mr. Rego.
Yeah, so right now they're pushing just doing paving. We're looking for paving, sidewalks and curbing, correct?
right. So right now, the only thing they're looking at is from Schoolhouse to the state line of just paving. And if there's money left over, they're looking at sidewalks as well. But yes, our request is that they do it all, not just halfway, because it doesn't make sense to halfway.
And what derailed us was the water mitigation problem at Belcher's Cove. And what do we call the other one? Is there a name other than the one next to Mallett's?
The bridge.
Sounds like good to me.
The area, as you may or may not know, there's a it's not a bridge, it's a culvert maybe, but
It is a bridge.
It's
though.
listed as a bridge.
it is listed as a bridge. Okay, so the design probably they're working on, I don't know, but they yanked this
Yeah.
project from that, or I should say they yanked out that geographic section from this project.
Yeah, and they sent us a couple of like rubric questions of kind of how they do the grading. Some of it has to do with the flooding issues and the, egress in and out of towns. So that will help our scoring. Some of the other problems is how much is the town going to pay towards it, which we all know is zero. This is your problem. It's a state road. So these are the questions we still have to figure out, because they actually put in a section in their website of how much we're going to pay for it.
And maybe it would help to remind them that, or Mr. DeSisto, maybe you could find out the best approach to remind them that we sent a resolution to the state, our state delegates, as well as our federal on this issue. And that was what, in December?
Yeah.
Because of it being one of three exits in town and one evacuation route that serves Bristol as well as Warren. So we think it's important.
Absolutely.
Mr. Rego.
One last thing, and Tony, maybe this is for you. Where does the liability fall on those sidewalks? They're in horrible condition. We just mentioned cleaning snow. I don't know how people clean the sidewalks when it's all falling apart the way it is.
So unfortunately, in the case of Child versus Green, decided in 1941, it involved the sidewalk on Main Street right here in Warren across the town wall. The liability falls on the town. The trust does cover matters of that nature, but that's a good point you're making. The liability for these sidewalks with the town.
And even sadder, when you look at where the guardrails are, a little further down, it took us quite a long time, as well as an advocate who no longer here with us, he's deceased. They were destroyed. They were all hit by car accidents and left. So you couldn't even walk on those sidewalks. And interestingly enough, one of those rails has been hit now and is impeding the sidewalk right on the turn of Arlington Avenue. So the state owns these, and yet it's an interesting, I don't know, tug of war. But thank you. And of course you can.
So we're gonna have
Actually, you can come to the microphone and people can hear you.
You need me?
I realized we
maybe.
weren't doing that earlier. My mistake.
There's going to be an update on the bike path bridge, and I know if things are not in the tip, they don't get state funding. So I wonder if anybody's looking forward enough to see if the two crossings on state roads that this bike path is going to incur will be in the tip. One is at 136 and one is at 103.
Well, as of now, the bike path crossings are going to be the bike path crossings that are there now, which are the pedestrian crossings that are on Medicom and
At Libby Lane.
at Libby Lane and down at Campbell.
No, but the other end going to Swansea at Long Lane, that's the other one that we need. And that may require a light.
Well, thank you for the Long Lane one. And
So
Yeah, we're actually, it is on the agenda, and we will probably have a better informed update on the bike path. Tonight's update is about the bridge itself.
Bridge, yeah.
So, yes, thank you on that information. And we will be reaching out to the agencies. Next, we have discussion and action for the reduction of members and alternates for the Economic Development Board from 9 members plus 2 alternates to 5 members plus 2 alternates. This is Vice President Cronin. And Ms. Cronin, I can add that we can take this action tonight. This board was created ad hoc by the council, and it requires nothing other than a motion tonight if it's the council's pleasure.
So moved.
Well, there you go. Why would you want to ruin that? Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Is there any discussion?
I did have a quick
Discussion.
I did have a quick
Mr.
question. Because this isn't a quasi judicial body, would it make more sense to have just 7 full members rather than 5 and 2 alternates, Councilwoman?
That is fine. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
a 7-member board is fine. Currently, according to the website, I'm not sure that that information is correct, that there are 9 members. And at some point, we got the attendance chart for, and I can't recall what the findings, but not for the EDB, because I kind of sorted out that those who are listed on the website currently actually even
Eric was on that board.
Yes, in fact, he was, are attending. So I think the board needs to be sort of attended to, and if we brought it down to 7 members,
Hand up.
we could do that.
Yeah, I don't see why you would have alternates on those boards.
Yeah.
Makes no sense at all.
Okay, so redirect your motion, recorrect your motion.
Did you have something else to say?
Well, I was just going to say typically with for example, the planning board and zoning board, because those are quasi judicial, you have alternates because they're making rulings that may impact the town. But because this board isn't doing that, maybe it did at one point have some sort of authority to that degree, but not anymore. So it makes sense to just have 7 full members. So if I may make an amendment or propose an amendment to
You can make the motion.
well, I'll make the motion to amend to change it from 5 members to 2 alternates to 7 full members.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I think we should reach out to the Economic Development Board. And Ms. Cronin, what exactly would you like the manager to reach out and say?
Just confirm who actually is on the board, get the attendance list for 2024, and maybe inquire as to where they're at and what we haven't gotten an annual report really from them either, sharing what they're up to. So I think they could use a little guidance and support. That had been in the past the one of the jobs of the planner. But
Maybe you can write an email to the manager and you
Yeah.
guys can forward it on.
talk.
And I just want to let you know, I am meeting with them on Thursday. I'm attending their meeting on Thursday along with Mr. Wheeler and Mr. Kroll.
Nice. Okay, now we have Messiaco, Connecting Kids to the Community, request for sponsorship from Lane Talbot Sparkman, Sense of Pride. Hi, how are you?
I'm well. How are you doing?
Good. Could you explain the good work that you do and why we would want to contribute?
Sure. So a little bit of background, Sense of Pride has existed for over 20 years. It was introduced in the Warren schools in 2010. I think I appeared before the council around those times asking for money then, and many of you have helped, both volunteered for the program and the town did contribute to the program. I actually left Mosaico for a period of time. I'm now back really with the sole focus of reviving the Sense of Pride program, which because of COVID and because of some staffing changes kind of went silent. It was offered during COVID virtually, and then it was sort of offered the following year, and then it wasn't offered after that. And so I approached Mosaico about reviving it, and I've been meeting with teachers and meeting with the administration. And In particular, one thing just to point out is that in 2023, RIDE adopted new social studies standards, which require that Rhode Island history be taught in the 4th grade. So it makes actually the Sense of Pride program, which is steeped in local history and understanding sort of how one's town evolved, even more relevant than it was before. So I've basically spent this year working with teachers and the administration to rework the program, but we've also implemented it. So we're running a pilot program this year. So you might have seen Hugh Cole 4th graders downtown this fall, and we're going to do some stuff with them this winter. And then they'll do some sort of, the other thing that's changed a little bit about the Sense of Pride program in its new incarnation is that there's a much bigger focus on civics within all of the curriculum, the social studies curriculum, but in particular, they want elementary students to be doing informed action projects. So what had been the community service project is now going to be more of an informed action project. And it might even sort of take on, so rather than necessarily like planting flowers, they might actually look at an issue that the town is contemplating, like, Market to Medicom, and maybe hear from town officials and hear from local individuals who understand the problems. And then kids will, write letters or, do whatever, but do something that demonstrates their understanding and engagement with sort of, bigger, more relevant civic projects and
Are there any
problems.
questions for Ms. Lane?
I was a Rotarian for 25 years, and every
Yeah.
year we donated to you. It's
Yes.
a wonderful, wonderful program. My fear is our financial situation. We say yes to you. I mean, we are opening a door. We have to be very, very careful.
I understand.
Well, we can say no to others and yes to others, so it's
I mean,
$150.
Full transparency, you're going to hear from me again as part of your budget cycle, but because this year, we're already in it, I'm coming forward just with the sponsorship request. And, I know you can only do what you can do, but I think, we asked Bristol for money, and it seems only reasonable to come to the town of Warren as well.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? I get this question every once in a while. This isn't a gay program, correct?
No, correct.
It's
Oh,
the
yeah, the
sense of
pride
pride
word.
in the
Yeah.
community.
No. It's civic pride.
That's what I
Yeah.
respond and
Yeah.
try to let people know that, and even if it was,
Yep.
but it's not, so.
It is not. It
Is there a motion to donate $150, which is the maximum that the council can give without a budgeted item?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
There you go.
Super. Thanks so much.
Thank you. And we look forward to the program coming to Warren. Next, we have page 5, discussion and action regarding finding and recommendations of the Auditor General's Municipality Financial Trend Report, fiscal years 2019 through 2023, issued September 2024, as it relates to Warren, page 79 through 80. Councilman Trombley.
Thank you, Mr. President. So for those who might be unfamiliar, the Rhode Island Office of the Auditor General puts out a municipality financial trend report for the prior 5 fiscal years. So in this case, it would be from fiscal year 2019 to 2023. And it has some findings and recommendations as it relates to the financial conditions of Warren. And I had a few questions on it, so I referred that to our finance director and was wondering if he would be able to answer some questions about this report. Would that be all right, Mr. Town Manager, Mr. President?
Well, sure, you can address, whoever can answer them.
Oh, certainly. I'm happy to ask. Generally. So in this report, Mr. Burlingham, in the section listing Warren's bond ratings, in this report, each year shows NA. In other words, there wasn't a bond rating from all 3 reporting agencies. Can you confirm that Warren has a bond rating and what it currently is?
Yes, we do. So I reached out to Hilltop Securities, who is the investment firm that we worked with for our most recent bond that we went out for. And they informed me that Moody's has our bond rating at capital A, small a 3. That's what our bond rating is. I guess I'm saying that, right? I guess it's
Probably is. I mean, it capital A, and, I think a plus or a 1 is.
I think A is good, right?
It's, yes, but the,
Triple capital A for that.
So my question then would be why, if we had a bond rating, was it not included in this report? Is it a problem of reporting it to the Auditor General? How
They
did-
weren't here.
No, I know that, but I'm just curious.
We don't know.
We don't know why, just wasn't.
And I wasn't, I can reach out to the Auditor General and find out where they got that information from. Our securities advisor told me that this is for Moody's investors. That's where we got here for this from.
Mr. Rego.
Is it possible we didn't do any borrowing in those past couple of years, and that's why we don't have a rating? When was the last time we went out for bond other than this? So that's possible, that's the reason why it's probably not on there.
I think we're not speculating, but good speculating. Typically, this information comes from the town board. Perhaps we did not include that in the audits at the time.
It's a good question, but we don't have an answer tonight, so no reason guessing. It all took place with previous employees. And
Thank you. So my second question is, this report shows that Warren had operating deficits from 2019 to 2022 and FY 19 to 22, and avoided a deficit in FY 23 due to the 2.25 million in other financing sources. Presumably those are ARPA monies which are now depleted. Given our current financial situation, how can Warren avoid structural deficits in future budget cycles?
We're not entirely sure we're in the structural deficit issue here. A structural deficit refers to a long-term mismatch between a government's spending pattern and the revenue pattern. It's not affected by the business cycle or the economic cycle. It's affected by how we run the town or the state or the country. Typically, such things as aging population, increased medical care, that sort of thing. That's what gives you a structural deficit. I would submit that, the problems that we're in right now are a direct result of the lawsuit from a year ago. However, if we want to, if we think we're in a structural deficit, the ways to do it are we reduce spending, we cut back on government programs or find ways to make them more efficient. We increase revenue by raising taxes or expanding the tax base, or we implement economic reforms which encourage growth and a bigger economic base. Those are the things you got to do, I guess, if you're certain that you're in a structural deficit, which I'm not entirely sure of.
Why aren't you certain that we're in a structural deficit, given the 4 out of 5 previous years were deficits?
well, these were previous
It's a matter
employees
of
of the
degree.
town.
It's, I think it's a matter of degree and seriousness. A structural deficit.
I think I want to hold it here. These are matters pertaining to history, past. To ask someone who's here now about questions that we don't have solid answers on. Do you really want to do this?
Well, Mr. President, I'm trying to get a sense of how we can move forward. My understanding is that this is the Auditor General's report. It has findings and recommendations. I want to confirm that my understanding is this is an expert in finances. This is an expert in our municipal government, even though he's only been here for about a year. Is it okay to ask him?
Of course, it's okay, but everything he said, we're doing.
Okay.
Mr. President.
I just feel a little bit like we're putting people on the spot with questions that are coming from, a few years ago.
Mr. President.
Yes.
In my conversations with Michael Abruzzi, he explained to me the structural deficit we had was that we were spending, or we were taking money from our reserve, our cash reserve, and supplementing the budget, basically.
We weren't borrowing. So whether you could ask 3 finance people and get the same answer, we were following advice from a previous manager and a previous treasurer who gave us very secure answers on where we stood, what our funding was at, what we could do, the advantages to not borrowing. While we had the $20 million bond out, we didn't really have any ability to go to bond. We were trying to maintain the standards we have in the town. We were trying to give the services we have, and we were utilizing financial advice that, again, if you ask 3 people, will you get the same answer from all 3, but nothing we were doing was wrong. And I just find it interesting that this is the angle that we're on. Mr. Rego?
But I think that's what you just said is exactly what's happening. They were using the fund balance for operation. That's like, you know, you're running your life.
No, we
you-
weren't using it for operation. We were using the fund balance for capital. We weren't going out to borrow.
Again, the way I understand it is if you do use some of your fund balance for operations, like using your credit card to fit your lifestyle, and I think that's what happened. It's my opinion.
Mr. Trombley?
Thank you. Moving forward, these financial statements reflect, as the council president says, prior financial data. But can you tell me what Warren has currently in its unassigned, unrestricted fund balance, or as recently as you know it to be?
I will send you that.
Okay, thank you. So next, our per pupil expenditures have increased steadily from FY19 to FY23. Do you have an opinion as to why this is the case, and is it related to declining enrollment rates?
So Mr. Burlingame and I met with the superintendent this week on a different matter, but I did ask her about this, and she explained to me that it's a combination of increase in contracts, costs, everyday costs, and in addition to one of the biggest needs, or one of the biggest costs, is the out-of-district is sending students or tuition of students out of district who are in challenging situations. She explained to me that currently is $3.8 million for the number of students that they send out of the school district. And on top of that, there's a transportation cost for those students, which is about $1.6 million. So she indicated that all of these factors play into the rise of per pupil costs.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Rego?
So I did you ask about the cost per pupil, or did you ask what the number of pupils were?
I asked the cost per pupil, why the cost per pupil had gone up over the 5-year period in the report.
So do you know what I think the number for Warren now is at 1,081. And I thought that number from Warren and Bristol were awfully tight. Is that something we can confirm what those numbers are? As far as the number of.
Oh, the number of
pupils?
students.
Yes, Bristol
Okay.
versus Warren.
We have that.
Well, you're referring to this information, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you're referring to current information?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll get the
When I looked at the numbers, they look awfully tight, and there's a big difference between our populations.
So we'll look at that when it's on the agenda, or a phone call is all we need there. We on NB4 or are we still on NB3?
Still had a few questions if that's all
Go
right.
right ahead.
Thank you. One negative finding in the Auditor General's report is that although other post-employment benefits are funded in a trust and contributions to the trust, the contributions to the trust were significantly less. This is, I believe, how it is described. Yes, contributions made annually were significantly less than the ADC, which I believe stands for actuarially determined contributions during the 5-year period. So my question would be, in your opinion, how do we correct that going forward?
Well, we make bigger deposits to the fund if we need to. Right now, we only have, what, 9 people?
nine retired participants.
Retired
Yes.
people getting these benefits.
75 potential.
Down the road.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll have to address this sometime, but we're not sure we have to do it right now.
Okay, thank you. And lastly, considering the new presidential administration's attempts to freeze federal funding, can you identify what, if any, local projects are impacted and the consequences thereof?
So as you know, this is a fluid situation from one day to the next. Right now, we understand that there is no freeze, but the projects that couldn't be impacted that Warren is involved in, one is the which we voted on to accept the grant for the wastewater treatment plant for the electrical upgrade. That is one. We also have a grant from the Environmental Protection Agency. If you recall, that was probably maybe about a year ago that we were presented a check for that for, I think it's 2.2 million for a pump station upgrade. The EPA has reached out for a conference call on this, but we have not signed any acceptance of any grant as of yet for that one. The only one we accepted was the.
Instead of trying to use memory, Mr. Trombley, if I may, I don't see that on the agenda, that question. And looking at the whole MB3, it probably would have been best to have this discussion prior to the meeting with the people looking for the answers, so that they could come tonight and have more information for the public versus trying to figure out answers now on memory.
Okay, well, thank you for the input.
I
This is
think-
the first time I've put items on the agenda, so I will try use your great wealth of knowledge in the future. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So yeah,
So,
that would be.
you've done with MB3? Okay. So NB4, discussion and action regarding improving transparency in municipal government.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. So last week, this was in the paper. It was there was a tree in Burrs Hill Park that ended up having to be cut down. And there was a lot of misinformation going on online, particularly on social media, a lot of anger, a lot of resentment towards local government, a lot of accusations of certain things, corruption and whatnot. And it was eventually corrected, and there was an article in the paper showing that this was not some nefarious plot to remove a tree, but actually a planned situation due to the tree's decomposition. But what it alerted me to was what I was hearing from a lot of folks, and I think this comment from a friend of mine from high school really summed it up on social media. It is incredible what happens when town officials are transparent about what is going on in the community because it provides relevant and necessary context. This comment section is drastically different than the one a couple days ago when someone shared a photo of the chopped down willow tree and didn't provide any context. The comments were terrible because people had no understanding of why the tree was cut down. The town should work to ensure this information is shared with people first before citizens jump to their own conclusions and often draw the wrong ones. Transparency and context are key, and I agree. And I think that, especially on social media, I think the town needs to have a bigger presence, and I would like at the proper time to make a motion to ask the town manager to look into ways in which the town can be more transparent on social media. I know that we have the Connect Warren app, and I know that worked very well, especially during the snowstorm with alerting people of the parking bans and whatnot. But I do think because more people are on social media and we are having trouble getting the word out about Warren Connect and making sure everyone's connected to it, that it makes sense for the town to have more of a social media presence to make sure that that misinformation is stopped and people have more faith in local government to do what is proper and appropriate. At the appropriate time, I'll make that motion.
Sure, but in the light of transparency, if anybody had taken the time to look at our ordinance, Mr. DeSisto, can you read that ordinance, please? Which is available right online.
I'm assuming that the situation was a hazardous tree.
Yes, at the beach.
Okay. That was a section 18-119, the town code, which allows for the DPW director to tree would take down a tree that needs to be taken down immediately because it's either hazardous or an emergency. That's section 120. If it had been a non-hazardous tree removal, That follows the process in section 18-112.1A. And that requires a notice. And people can actually have the hearing right at the tree.
Not the site.
And on the site, I'm sorry, and then when, if the decision is adverse to what the people that are there, whether they take an appeal to the town council. Apparently, this wasn't that situation.
No, it was rotted.
Why it was-
So, thank you for that information. Next, we have NB five.
Well, Mr. President, I have a motion for
A motion on what?
That's
No
the-
motion was made.
I asked that the motion be made at the appropriate time to ask the town manager to look into ways to increase our presence on social media for this, to alert people to these activities, to have more transparency.
I thought we were gonna get to the appropriate time.
I thought that, well, before moving on to the next item,
So,
You mean today you're making a motion?
right now, yes.
Okay,
so-
I didn't understand what you were talking about. I thought you were gonna do some research and at the appropriate time, you were gonna make a motion. So, is there a second to Mr. Trombley's motion? And then we'll have discussion.
Second.
Discussion.
Discussion. I think the discussion is, all he's looking for is a better way for us to communicate with our citizens. Is that correct?
Correct.
And I'm all for it. So make the motion, oh, well, let's have. a vote
Motion's
on it.
made, we're having discussion. Any
Well-
other discussion?
Yeah, so
Thank you.
I am not a big user or fan of social media platforms and opportunities for people to just get into it and toss whatever thought comes to their brain first out into the webosphere for that just ignites ridiculous conversations and sort of promotes more misinformation. I think it would be probably in our best interest as we go through the update of the website that we have like a live blog or a live news or an opportunity for there to be a current update so that when things of this nature, like a tree needing to come down immediately, we can throw something up there and we can encourage our community to refer to that on a regular basis if they have questions about what's going on, and hopefully we will be proactive enough to get that kind of information out there. I personally would not support the town getting into social media. It would require who's gonna run it, who's gonna oversee it, who's gonna, respond and answer questions. Do we keep it no comments? I don't know. I just think it opens up a can of worms for there to be more trouble than what we were hoping to address as far as an opportunity to get consistent, concise, and current information out there. I think there are better, we might have more control with a website sort of add-on or tab that would give current news and updates.
Mr. DeSisto wants to speak.
I have a quick question. The town of Middletown has an Instagram. Is that one of the things that you're looking at?
Well, I was thinking particularly social media, Facebook, Instagram and such, yes.
Here, what they do in, what Middletown does for Instagram is they'll say, Second Beach is closed. Or, there's an emergency on this street, avoid it, that type of thing.
Exactly, yes.
What does Barrington do? Because Barrington has a mechanism too.
Mr. Rego. Question for Mr. DeSisto.
Yeah, I don't believe they do. I don't believe they do. And again, like Discover Warren, we have social media, where we use Instagram, and we posted about the parking ban the other day, and then we let everybody know when it's lifted. And when there are sort of appropriate things that are going on that our viewers, followers might benefit from knowing, the small business community, we share things like that. But like I said, I think that Facebook has just evolved into this, I don't know, boxing ring of crazy. And I don't think that it's a healthy way of getting accurate, immediate information out there. I think it just welcomes Anyways, if it's what people want, but
Well-
you, Mr. Manager, are you gonna run it?
You can answer. And then Mr. Rego has a question.
I agree with the vice president that you have to have somebody that is going to be able to be on top of it. And quite honest with you, we don't have the staffing here to do that. I mean, I'm doing the website, but I don't really know a lot about the website. I'm learning as I go, and I know there's been discussions and with people in the workers in the town hall who actually take care of their page. So I think it would be a challenge for us if we had some type of social media, because quite frankly, it would be one of those things that would be on the wayside, and we wouldn't be able to get to it right away.
Mr. Rego.
So I'm not looking for social media. I'm just looking for a way to communicate. And I don't see anything wrong with his motion of let's try to figure out a way and then come back to the council with some ideas.
Sure. And for all of those people who may not know, we do have an app, and it's very informative. And if you go on it, it'll tell you all sorts of things. You just download it, put it on there, and information comes forth. Mr. Tromley.
Just to clarify my motion, I hope that I stated what I was intending correctly. It's for the town manager to explore what might be able to do with this. It doesn't order, I'm not trying to order that tonight, that he set up a Facebook account and everything. But I do, the problem that I see is that when we're not present on these social media sites, when we are not sort of putting out official statements related to what's going on in town, when there's a vacuum, people fill that vacuum with false information, which we saw with this tree thing, which we have seen in previous instances, which causes, I think, generally panic, suspicion, and other negative inferences to be drawn by the community at large, which requires the town to respond in ways that are probably more expensive than just having an official account to put things on. So that's why I put this on the agenda. This is why I think it's a good idea. If it doesn't get voted through tonight, that I understand it, but I that's where I stand.
I have no problem giving you an I vote because you're asking somebody to look into something.
Yeah, that's all.
But you don't, to answer your question, the cheapest way, I don't respond. When there's actual information, we give it, which we did that day. And then Ms. Fardig went above and beyond and gave pictures for those people who were concerned enough to actually put the same effort into emailing me or texting me. They got an immediate answer. I don't know how many people took the time to call the manager. I'm just using this one as an example.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we're here, we're available. But yes, so the motion is on the, we have a second, we have a motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, we'll look into it. Next, we have,
With permission, may I combine NB 5 and 6, Mr. President?
of course.
Thank you.
So we have discussion and action regarding the adoption of ordinances related to accessory dwelling units. And we have discussion and action regarding the adoption of ordinances establishing permitted use in the model of cottages on the green in certain zones. These are all Councilman Tromley's items.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Please.
I wrote down some things because I want to be, I try to be very careful and I want to be very direct. The housing crisis profoundly affects all the people who call Warren home. According to the 2024 Housing Fact Book by Housing Works Rhode Island, the going rate of the average home in Warren is $474,500. In order to qualify for a mortgage at that price, the annual income needed comes out to $157,846. Renters are not in a much better position. The average two-bedroom rent in Warren is $2,397 per month, which translates into needing an annual income of $95,880 to not spend more than 30% of your gross income on housing. That was what was discussed by the presentation earlier this evening. Looking back 10 years ago, and the median home price in Warren was $230,000, and the average monthly rent was $1,054, both less than half of what it is today. These high housing costs are depleting household budgets for fundamental needs. Lack of housing makes it hard for small business owners to find workers, drives up the cost of healthcare, and puts the most vulnerable in dangerous living situations. According to a 2023 U.S. Department of Health and Human Services report, older adults are the fastest growing age group of those experiencing homelessness. Crossroads, Rhode Island reported that the percentage of Rhode Islanders 65 and older experiencing homelessness increased by 33% in 2023 alone. The cause of this crisis is that there are not enough homes to meet the needs of people living here and who wish to live here. Demand has outpaced supply. Without adequate supply, older adults looking to downsize cannot find suitable options in Warren and therefore are staying in place rather than freeing up their homes for younger families. Because younger people cannot find housing that they can afford in Warren, they are leaving in droves. I believe we must do something, and that is what brings me to these two housing-related items on tonight's agenda. I believe that when there is a shortage of any good or service, the solution is to make more of it. But there are many who are concerned that more housing will have downsides. There are many in Warren who care deeply about preserving open space, as well as many who are concerned about preserving history, art, and architecture, and feel that more housing threatens those priorities. Some have practical concerns about how new developments will impact local traffic, water and sewer capacity, etc. So to solve this crisis, we must find innovative solutions that break out of rigid ways of categorizing land use and open up opportunities to bridge the divide and meet the needs of Warren today and in the future. The first of these items on tonight's agenda codifies into local ordinances legislation enacted at the state level that went into effect in January, setting up new rules for accessory dwelling units, or ADUs. ADUs can be garages, sheds, attics, or basements that are converted into a separate and additional unit of housing. These are typically used by older adults who have downsized but still wish to remain in their community. This would normally have been the responsibility of the town planner, but since that position is currently vacant, I drafted a vision for review and consideration. I believe ADUs will be a huge part of adding to the housing stock and helping to ease price pressures that we are seeing. I want to note that this is merely a codification to bring Warren into conformance with state law, but in a way that keeps the same format and structure of our existing ordinances. Secondly, in my research, I discovered a development down in East Greenwich, which earned state and national awards back in 2010 for land use, which I have referred to as the Common Court design. The idea being that in a housing development, instead of each unit having to have its own backyard, there's a shared space. This increases the amount of density while also incorporating traditional suburban aesthetics. Many consider Warren's greatest asset to be our dense, walkable, historic, mixed-use downtown, and I agree that it is a great asset. But under our current zoning laws and zoning and planning ordinances, almost all of the historic properties located in downtown Warren would not be allowed to be built if you tried to do so today. I don't believe this is right. I believe that we should use the dense walkable downtown as our model for future development, and this Common Court design does just that. To the best of my knowledge, there is no ordinance from another community we can use as a template, but I'm hopeful that through the example of Cottages on Green, we can develop one from the dimensions as provided in their comprehensive permit application. At the appropriate time tonight, I would ask to make a motion to refer both items based on the solicitor's recommendation, to himself and Allison Ring. And then for these to be put into proper legal and ordinance-based language, and ask that they be reported back at the March regular meeting. At which time, I don't mean to go into what I would like at the March meeting, but at that meeting, I'd like to refer to the Affordable Housing Task Force and the Planning Board for their comments and consideration, but that is a bridge to be crossed later.
Mr. DeSisto, do you have anything to add in regards to the legal ease?
The town's ordinance relating to accessory dwelling units has to be brought into conformance with section 45-24-73.
Wait a second, what?
Sorry. Thank you. Can you hear me now? Because it wasn't on. Maybe I was shouting. People at home, just at home. Thank you. Thank you. The town's accessory dwelling unit provisions in the ordinance have to be brought into conformance with the law that was cited by Councilman Trombley. That's section 45-24-73. And, you know, we were working on it with Herb, and then he got his position. So we've taken that to back up with Allison. So I think it's appropriate to refer it over here so that we can take a look at what Councilman Trombley has and put it together with what we've been doing so that It can be put in ordinance form and then the process can start from there. That's the first thing. The second thing is cottages on the green, which I'm familiar with now. That would have to be, something that we're gonna be making from whole cloth, because I couldn't find any provisions in any community except for one, which is close. What had happened in East Greenwich was it went through the root. I mean, they actually had a very robust a regulatory process that took a couple of years. It was appropriate at that time because there was a real downturn in the market. So I don't think that the developers were all that concerned with the fact that it took actually a couple of years for that thing to be approved. It got awards for the design. So if we were to do something like that more, we would need some ordinances for that. We'll start working on it, take a look what the councilman has and go from there.
Any other, well, first off, is there a second for this discussion?
Second.
Okay, so Mr. Trombley's motion is seconded.
Yeah,
Mr. Rego.
I looked at it online. That's a beautiful development. The problem is, where do you put these developments? Isn't that something we have to probably find where we could possibly put them even before we start talking about these types of developments?
Well, I think that would be part of the ordinance itself. You know, that development that we're talking about, 15 units on an acre site, was a good design, but the key feature to it was a wet area. And they managed to incorporate some water features into it, innovative drainage systems, and also some water type things that add to the aesthetic for it. So those things can be incorporated on, and I think what you're looking at for this, the closest that you would have to something of that nature, and it's not, the analogy isn't on all fours, so to speak, but where St. Casimir's Church was, that type of a development, I think that's what you'd be looking for, an adaptive reuse type of a situation.
Wasn't this referred to as cluster zoning?
No,
No, this was never cluster zoning?
no, it wasn't a cluster zone.
Okay.
I had thought originally it was. but
What
this-
it seems like to
Is it a-
me.
HUD, plan unit development, plan unit, plan.
You could say that, but what they did is they filed a flat out comprehensive permit application, 15 units, 5 of them affordable. But they went through the course of a major land development in a major land subdivision, so to speak. So they went through the 3 processes on that.
Okay. Any other questions? So there's a motion and a second, all in favor of moving this on for further investigation.
Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
There you have it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Next, we have NB7, discussion and action requesting the town manager to study and make recommendations regarding revisions to capital fees and fines.
Municipal.
Municipal fees and fine. What did I say? Capital? Sorry. I
Sorry.
don't know where that came from.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is my last item on the agenda. Thank goodness, it's been a while. But I just, so this is essentially that we are in a budget crunch, financial crunch as it is. I think it's appropriate to ask the manager to take a look at the fees and penalties for certain actions like not cleaning up your dog's goings and such, and see if they are matching what we need, see how, if they need to be updated.
Is there any discussion?
We tend to do this
Budget time.
on an annual basis, kind of on a rolling basis as needed. So it's,
I'm just thinking more like a wholesale, like the one, just because of where we're at, but yeah, I understand.
Well, we don't want to raise fines and give the illusion that we're, giving more speeding tickets than we should and giving, but looking at the, historical positions of those numbers, sure.
And again, it'll prepare us for budget time, so it's,
Yeah.
Good thing.
And I'm sure we can, that's all available online, so it shouldn't be that much of a trudgery to figure out where we're at. So is there a second to Mr. Trombley's
Second.
motion? Is all in favor?
Aye.
hi.
Okay, all good points. And there's a learning curve to this, so you hung in there and
Thank you for your patience.
it gets better. Or it doesn't. Mr. Rego is still working on it. Now we go to Mr. Rego. No, no, no. Now we have Chuck Staton. So we have discussion and action regarding planting a planting plan for the exterior landscape of the Warren Town Hall. Mr. Staton, I saw you. How are you this evening?
Wonderful. Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Chuck Staton, 48 Kennicott Avenue. I own Staton's Landscaping. This is our 46th year being a company in the town of Warren. And I feel like we're really blossoming. And I'm here to ask permission to change the landscape in front of the town hall. And the reasons are that it's time. It's been about 10 years. And I see the town looking better and better in various sections. And I want to bring the town hall up to raise the standard of the town hall. I'm also a native son. I love the town. And my mom was worked in the town hall for so many years with Gaby Hanley and retired as deputy town clerk. And I just would like to see it look better. The short history is that at one time, the big shrubs in front of the town hall were removed. And John Matt, because they were so big and they were so unruly. So John Mass had asked me to landscape it. And I got plants donated. And my son, Dennis, who's a registered landscape architect, drew the plan. And we use a lot of native stuff because it's environmentally beneficial. But some of the native stuff is not very showy and poppy. And it's time to change it. Now, we've submitted a plan to you. I think you have it. And we're still using some natives. And we would intend to keep the pollinator plants and mix them in with this scenario. Or with this scenario that you have in front of you. I would also like to bring back the grass that used to be there, but in the form of sod. Because that was nice. And we use little blue stem grasses along the wall, but they didn't work as well as I would like them to be. So we'd like to bring back actually grass, and we would offer to water it and maintain it. Right now, it's maintained by the tree commission and myself. So we would continue that. So there'd be no maintenance aspect for the town. Unless the town, whoever maintains the town hall would like to cut the grass, that's a different story, but we could also do that. So I'm asking for permission to move forward with this, and we would do it this spring, if you would like us to do so.
Now, for those of you who don't know, our expert on plants and plantings, Mr. DeSisto, his family had a nursery. What do you think of this plan?
It's a good plan.
What do you think of the species?
They're okay. I'm okay with the whole thing.
Okay.
You
Mr.
had,
Rego.
you had me at no cost. You didn't even have to bring up your mom, and I loved your mom, so, just so you know.
Mr. Tromley,
I think it's an excellent idea.
Cronin.
I think it's lovely. I do question the adding of sod or grass. Will that require mowing? And
Yes.
I mean, you're offering to do it. That's lovely. It's hard to get the perspective of how much it will be. Will it be enough that somebody could maybe sit on the grass? I mean,
Yes, yes.
And it would invite people to congregate?
Yes, we would keep that, the area, if we're walking in to the town hall, to the right, that's an area that we made a little masonry area for the sleigh at Christmas time and for displays. We keep that
I
there.
think it aids with putting the flags up as well.
That's right. And it aids, that's where people stand to put the flags up.
Yep.
But we'd like to have enough so that you have plenty of room for the plants, but some room to possibly sit down. And there's a granite wall there that exists. So we bring the grade right up to the granite wall. So it'd be continual from the granite wall grading. And there'd be a little bit of room on the grass.
So what do you think the depth is from the granite to the, because I see here, for those of you who don't have the luxury of, so this white area is where the sod will be. And then all of those circles are planting, and then the little circles are plantings. So what do you think that is, 3 feet?
I think that's at least 3 feet. It's a little bit in front of the masonry area. There's a few flowering perennials and pollinator plants. They're not big. So I think it's at least 3 feet. It could be, maybe it's 8 feet, between 5 to 8 feet.
Well, again, you're doing this, and you're even saying that you're willing and ready to help with the maintenance and work with the town person here. So I can't think of a reason why not, and it's gonna look better, and Chuck, your roots do run deep. There's no doubt about it.
And if you guys want a visual, you could probably plant on one of my properties. That way they get a visual, and if they like it, they can just do the just throw it out.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
To accept this generosity,
Just a
Mr.
moment.
Trombley.
Sorry, and the amount of puns related to flowers is very heartwarming right now, but I just had a quick question. I know that you're the chair of the tree commission. Have you discussed this with the arborist, and how does he feel about the newly hired arborist?
I haven't discussed it with him. I could discuss it with him and get his input.
Well, I think we're probably going to support this, but it'd be nice to know what his thoughts are as long as
Okay,
he's
I will ask for him for his input on this.
I mean, you're not asking to cut down the Christmas tree, right?
The
Pine
Christmas
tree
tree.
that's there?
That's not on this, so that little green circle, that's the Christmas tree.
Right,
Yeah.
you're not taking
That's not
that
being
down.
touched, no.
All right, so there really aren't any trees coming down. on it.
No,
Right.
well, there are bushes that are
Bushes,
gonna be
yeah.
removed.
Correct.
No trees coming down, correct.
I just wanted to,
Oh, of course.
give a little insight to Mr. Trombley's concern, but feel free to share it with them, but I don't think by code we need their approval. So there's a motion, there's a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you.
And thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
That's great.
NB9,
So,
Mr. Rego, Town Hall repairs.
yeah, so, and we've talked about a couple of these things, but I wanted to put on the agenda, that way we make sure they get done. One of them is to repair the front door of the town hall, so it'll look nice for that gardening work we're gonna be doing out front. Repair and paint the front side, the stairwell, to the second floor, that's the entrance coming up to the second floor. Add stronger light to the entrance of the downtown, town hall. I don't know if everybody's noticed, but when you go out there, it's very, very dark at night. So add some light there. And repair and paint the lower entrance to the town hall windows, and I think we have ARPA money for that, so I think these are all things that are doable.
Okay. New business 10, send request to I'm sorry. Were there any questions for Mr. Rego from the council on those items? The manager have anything to say? I think everything's pretty clear. Okay, new business 10, send request to our legislators to amend low and moderate income housing legislation to include nursing homes.
Yeah, so
Mr.
last
Rego.
year, Senator Phelan introduced legislation to include housing choice vouchers. In that legislation, it did mention about losing my train of thought. Vouchers, yeah, and then they amended it. No, not vouchers, subsidized. And if it would have been included in there, nursing homes would have been included, but somehow they changed it. So I'm asking that we're asking that Tony draw up a resolution, send it to our legislators to include nursing homes. It would be a benefit to the town of Warren. That would probably bring us up to 9% if half of these people that are in nursing homes get Medicare. And I think it would be a benefit to the town. And again, I'm not trying to avoid affordable housing. I'm just trying to get us back up to the.
Mr. Sisto.
I don't mind drafting it, but I'd be more comfortable if I draft it and then it was on for the March meeting.
That's fine.
So that you can take a look at it and see what I come up with. I want to make sure that I draft it as appropriate. You know, that we had that circumstance on one of them where the resolution wasn't quite what the council wanted.
Yeah.
So what I'd like to do is have it come back here.
So why don't we put in the motion that we're gonna research and draft?
We'll make a motion that you draft it, bring it back to us next month.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next, NB 12, request department heads to provide a monthly report.
We have NB 11.
Oh yeah, sorry. Clarify procedures for counselors to place item on the agenda.
So last month I had asked to place some things on the agenda. Joe wasn't here, but Perry was. And Perry, I mean no disrespect when I bring this up. But I had asked to put a couple of things on there, and one of them was the nursing home. And Perry told me that I could. So I just need to be clarified of when I asked to put something on the agenda, if it's up to the council president or vice
No,
chair.
I can give you clarity. So the process is the Tuesday before the meeting, you submit your request in writing to the clerk's office. Crystal clear.
That section,
It's in the, please read the chart.
it's section, actually, it's in the, Code of Ordinances, section 2-30B. Any member of the town council desiring to place an item on the agenda must notify the town clerk no later than 12 noon, the Tuesday immediately preceding the meeting, by a written statement adequately describing the item to be placed on the agenda.
And again, it would be subject to review by solicitor and the manager.
Well, what happens is when those requests come in, typically what I shouldn't say typically, the department heads will meet with a manager, a solicitor, and a member of the council on Wednesday at 10 o'clock to go over the agenda and make sure that all of the items are properly researched, and if there's some difficulty, then the council person can be contacted.
Absolutely. Thank you for that.
Good. Next, NB 12, request department heads to provide a monthly report. Mr. Rego.
Yeah, so it would be nice to know what everyone's doing on a monthly basis. So I'm not looking for a long report, maybe a 1-2 page report of what's been accomplished, what needs to be accomplished, what's happening in the different departments. Finance, I would like to see a cash balance sheet and other items. So just something for us to be more informed of what's going on.
Would that be internal for just the council, or would that be part of
It
the,
would be part of the package they would give us every month.
but
And
to be part of the,
Right, and-
the agenda and?
Yeah, it should be part of the agenda, but it doesn't mean that we're gonna have to have them come up and explain. If we see it and we're good with it, that's it.
Well, it can't, if it's on the agenda, it's public. Although all of the information is public, if you put it on the agenda, you're asking it to be
Public information.
discussed, and, well, no, it's public information in its existence because it's about the department. But if you put it on the agenda, it then becomes a discussion point. Mr. DeSisto.
I think what Councilman Rego's asking for is just a brief description of what's going on. This is a transparency thing.
Mhm.
And manager informs me that he talked to the staff. They're okay with it.
Oh, yeah, we used to do it.
Okay, and it's good for, when it's budget time to know where they're at and their needs and,
But do you remember when we got these? We didn't have it on the agenda.
So Tony, is that something that we could just get and not be on the agenda on a monthly
Yes.
basis? Okay, and if we have any questions, we could always put it on the agenda. I
Absolutely.
think that would be the best, yes.
And we
yes.
get our expenditures and our, what's the other one? Our
Revenue.
revenue and expenditures. I'm always dealing with the expense. So any other questions, comments? Good points by both councilmen. Town manager, we have a discussion regarding Rhode Island energy projects. Placement of the large wooden transmission poles starting from the Swansea line, replacement of 22 poles on Water Street, placement of gas lines on side streets running off Water Street. I read the big headings. It's up to you to describe them now.
Thank you, Mr. President. So we met with, I keep saying National Grid, but Rhode Island Energy came in and met with us, a representative, and they also brought a team in. So the first item is the replacement of those large wooden transmission poles that you see running from the Swansea line, and they go all the way to Bristol. They are going to replace those with they're brownish metal ones. And they're going to be doing that starting, in fact, I believe they've already started at the golf course in Swansea and are heading this way at some point. They've, Narragansett,
Island Energy.
Rhode Island Energy, thank you. I guess that shows that I've been
We can
around a
just
little
call it
while,
whatever
right?
we want.
Yeah, they
For
have
this
been,
discussion.
have had conversation with the Conservation Commission, and they have been out to the site looking at, because it's going to go over some of the land out there as well near the river. They've been out there, they've had discussions with them. Their proposal is to lay down some what they call mats, which are large wooden timbers that the vehicles and the trucks drive over, so there's no damage to the land and nature out there. So they have been in conversation with them. They've been working with them. In fact, we'll be discussing this again tomorrow. And it's going to go all the way from, like I said, Swansea line to Bristol, to include the area behind J. Mills Park.
If I could take the opportunity, Ms. Flanagan, I'm not gonna put you on the spot, but I'm just gonna give you a possibility of we're having a meeting tomorrow morning with a representative. And I'm sure you're familiar with Caratunk Preserve and how maybe it's Mass Electric, whatever, because that's in Massachusetts, how they actually incorporated walking trails along with their utility trails. Would that ever be something you'd be interested in pursuing? Basically, they put down rocks and there's better drainage. They correct the drainage so that instead of coming in every time, because their law, as you probably know, is they're supposed to leave it 100% without any problems because of their access. That's what's written.
Right, except that for.
Never happens.
Right, and the gorilla in the room is the Federal Utility Regulatory Commission, which pretty much overburdens any other regulations except maybe Army Corps of Engineers. So the land trust also is being affected by these mats. We're working closely with Save the Bay on monitoring the impact of these mats on our marshland and on the river, because some of the mats are actually being dropped in the river. They're dropping mats on tops of mats and tops of mats until they get above
The height.
the high tide line. The hope is that it will cause subsidence of the marsh. The hope is that the marsh will rebound quickly once the mats are removed. Long-term, whether we can have a long trail along this location, it'd be easier environmentally to do that just inland from the
Right, I mean,
marsh.
it's not
And
necessarily,
certainly CRMC
everywhere.
would not like to see us putting, things in the marsh.
right, the marshland, but it's that, one of the points that I find interesting and have brought up with them 20 years ago, it's that transition period point. We have the road that goes down, and what I'm speaking of specifically is behind FedEx. So you have the road, they drive the road, then they're on not marsh, wetland, and they make a real mess out of it. And then they get to the marsh. So to me, there's an area. So would you be interested in having us ask them to contact, or maybe I should rephrase this. It sounds like you're already in contact with them.
Well, we are in contact with them to monitor what we're doing. We're also working separately with Save the Bay, CRMC, DEM, and Natural Resources Conservation Service for bringing a trail system close to the marsh at our newest preserve at Soames Meadow Preserve on Market Street, right next to where Blount just bought. the building.
Right.
So again, most of these mats are impacting the marsh itself. And generally in Rhode Island, CRMC really does not like us doing things in the marsh unless it's marsh restoration.
So this doesn't sound like you need my help pointing them in this direction. It sounds like they're already in that
We're
direction.
very much working on
Right.
marsh restoration projects,
Thank you.
both at.
Mr. Rego.
So Joe, were you talking about a walking trail from FedEx?
No, I'm talking about, I mean, yes, that's the area, but what I'm referring to is by their, what do they have, an easement? So they have an
Right.
easement, right? In that easement, we can't stop them from going out there to do this work. But the language states that they're not supposed to leave it in any way worse, or basically they're supposed to leave it better than they showed up. When you look at the size of this operation, it's massive. And these pads they're talking about are 30 feet long. They're telephone poles bolted together. You have a machine lifts it, moves forward. I mean, it's a great
All I was gonna say. is
job, but
Some of those easements on private property, so.
Right.
yeah, this isn't,
Well,
this is their easement on town property or land trust property.
Right. So yes, there's land trust property. There's also town conservation commission property. There may be opportunities. It's also really expensive to build boardwalks over marshes. I think it cost over $1 million 20 years ago for Audubon to build their boardwalk out onto.
Oh,
the
yeah, I
water.
wasn't looking for a boardwalk. I was
Okay.
looking for, instead of them, some of the access points, I think would be
Oh, the
improved
access points
by,
themselves, yeah.
for our use, because it could be rocks with drainage. Because if you look at those areas of where it goes from road to then the woods, there's like big drainage problems there. So
I'd be happy to sit down and have coffee with you and more
Sure.
specifically at some maps and brainstorm about.
So let's not get off the agenda topic. Thank you, because you just happen to be here. But we're talking about large wooden transmission poles and the mats that they use.
What are these mats made out of?
Telephone poles, square, big 12 by 12s, and they bolt them together. They have a big machine that lays it down and then it rides out that length. Then they lay it down again and again and again, and they go out to where they gotta go. And nothing's frozen solid out there, so that's why they're doing it now, hoping. Go ahead, Mr. Sullivan.
The next project that Rhode Island Energy is going to be doing is they're going to replace 22 poles along Water Street. The time frame is between now and 18 months, I believe. Is that Brian? We don't have any details on that exactly, but I wanted to keep you in the know of that. This is going to be occurring sometime in the
Ms.
next
Cronin
18
would like to add some points.
Yeah, it would be really appreciated to have some really forewarning to know the time frame on when they're going to be doing it, how long it will take each pole to be replaced, what kind of disturbance it'll cause on the street, because it is hopefully not going to take place during prime business hours for our small business community. That has to be taken into consideration.
Agreed. And we did have discussion with them when they came in about this. The other discussion we had was that Warren has a bunch of projects that'll be going on. Main Street, repaving of Main Street, the repaving of Market Street out to state line. So there needs to be coordination, because just can't have all of these routes shut down at the same time. That would
Right.
be just gridlock. So yes, but we'll also make sure that we keep that in mind as well when we continue to have these discussions with them. And
now the replacement of the gas lines, which gives us a benefit.
yeah, so the similar project, probably within the next 18 months or so, is replacing the gas lines along the side streets that run off of Water Street. And they may be tapping into the main line is on Water Street itself. But these will be the side streets that we've been told.
So side streets going towards the water, or both?
I believe,
Both sides of.
I
Water
believe
Street?
both, yeah, if
But
there's
the benefit
gas.
isn't just a new line. They're gonna pave it curb to curb.
Yeah.
It's our ordinance. We're having this discussion now. Every time they've met with us, we're saying it. We're gonna say it tomorrow morning.
Yes.
So. Yeah, good. Next, we have update on the broken bridge.
So, at the end, towards the end of January, I received a call from, Eric Colminger from the, wastewater treatment plant. At the construction of the, broken bridge, they were going to be installing, what sheeting, they're called sheeting, and they get vibrated into the ground. They're, I believe they're fiberglass, and they're not the metal ones, but they're fiberglass ones. And some of these were going to be very close to a main sewer line that runs out there. And we had some concerns about it. So at that time, we asked them to stop working. And they did. We had meetings with DOT and the company that's now putting in the bridge. And we came up with a solution. They also, in the meantime, they also discovered another pipe that was, we believe it was a discharge pipe. Not sure if it's active or not, but could be a drain pipe from one of the mills, but we're not really sure. So they discovered that. So there was some concerns about that. And the sheeting was going to go right through that, the drain pipe. So that was one of the concerns. We've come up, or DOT has come up with a solution. The solution was that they were going to camera the sewer line before they put these, install these sheetings, and then afterwards. So we have the before and after, and if there's damage to the line afterwards, then they will be responsible for the repairs of that line. Similar with the drain line, we believe it's a dead line, but I believe that what they're going to do is they're going to go around, they're going to cap it at two ends and then go around it and make sure that there are no issues with that drain line.
We had a study, I think the Kickapoo River Council years ago and received a grant. And because those pipes are visible at low tide, and they received a grant, and I believe there was an intake to an old fire system. There was an intake and a discharge from the boiler for Carroll Cable. And I think there was a dead, I think the largest clay pipe was dead end on both ends. That's just my memory. I don't know if we have that information available, but if they've come up with a solution without it.
I believe, yeah, I don't know if we have that information available, but I believe that what you are suggesting is what the DOT, the contractor, and Mr. Wheeler also suggested, that that pipe was probably part of the fire
This was
suppression
also
system.
in conjunction with high levels in the Kiki, and the Kiki River Council had the money, and we found pollution sources on several streets. And actually, then we went into the biggest burden was the illegal cars, the junkyard, which came out of testing. Partly, maybe that didn't come out of it directly, but interestingly enough, the information out of these tests that were done on these pipes did support the position that we later dealt with.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Bolster, can you come to the mic, please?
A quick question about the bridge. Is there a rough due date when it's going to be all finished? And is there going to be any kind of ceremony, or?
We don't know yet.
Still too early to say?
Well, we're, Mr. Wheeler, I'll speak, I mean, I won't speak for you.
So I mean, everything that is happening causes more and more delays, but the goal is to be done by the summer. The contractors are kind of just as much as everybody else over it. They want it to finally be done, so that's why they've been working straight through the winter. We're assuming there's gonna be some ribbon cutting ceremony since it has been long enough, so we'll keep everybody posted when we know.
And I can add that we will be, do you have more to your question?
Just and naming it.
Well, we have to get it done first. And your suggestion was one of about 10 years ago, so we're trying to maybe someday get this, we'll see. But what we're working on now, hopefully, is going to be contacting, is it DOT and DEM, Mr. DeSisto?
Yes.
And we're trying to get approval and maybe funding, hopefully funding. We don't need approval, we need funding. We do have the right of way that is there that will connect to Metacom, and it will be a dedicated bike path. But once you get to Metacom, you'll have to be following the rules of the road, which we're fine with. And if the day comes that something better can be paid for, we'll look at that. But we are now taking that step and trying to get some responses. Any of you who've made phone calls to agencies understand the wait time. So we're trying, and hopefully we'll have some answer whether we can get funding or not. Because we don't want it to just make a turn on Barker.
Correct. And I do have a phone call into, Vice President had mentioned that we had a meeting with DOT here, and I do have a phone call into Mr. David Walsh, and waiting for a call.
That's
back.
what we're waiting.
Yes.
So, yeah, so we're trying. Thank you. Next, we have the solicitor. Discussion and action regarding subrogation claim of Gecko Insurance regarding Fleming incident.
You've already denied the Fleming claim and sent it to the trust. This is what's known as a subrogation action. Mr. Fleming has been paid by his own insurance company on this, and now they're trying to enforce their judgment here. I'm asking you to deny this claim too, and also send it to the trust so it can be properly adjusted, and the town will get the adequate representation.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next, we have
Discussion.
discussion prior to that taking of the vote.
Well, as it applies to this particular case and the paperwork that we got for it, Councilman Trombley and I both got this digitally, but this is a 20+ page document of garbage from Geico, that it is just obscene that was printed out. I'm sure there is nothing in here of any value to any of us, because we know we're just going to deny it and send it to the trust. So if we could maybe just not print stuff like this out, because it just keeps me up at night.
I know, but we have to.
We do not have to. You can have a cover page and then you can get the rest in a digital file.
Is that true? We don't have to have a hard copy if I don't have a computer in front of me?
You know what? I like hard copies. I agree with her. It's a lot of pages, but there's.
I mean,
sometimes-
Did you read through this, really?
Yes.
I read enough
to
of it.
back.
Please.
Really want not to have it with a claim,
I think.
I'm getting it all.
I think Ms.
digitally
Cronin has a
anyways.
valid point. Maybe we could bring it to our attention the week
In the
before.
future, what I'll do is I'll cull through it, so you get the relevant information.
Yeah, I think that's,
Cover memo explaining what it is and why we're doing what we're doing, and then an attachment, a digital attachment for anybody who wants to read pages 1 through.
okay, so
100.
that actually wasn't discussion on the motion, but we squeezed it in.
Yeah.
So the vote is all in favor. Next, request a motion for, Mr. Trombley, did you, because that's not.
No, I was agreeing with you that it wasn't
Okay.
necessarily that.
Was,
I don't,
you had a question? No, okay.
No.
Thank you. Request a motion for executive session, closed session pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 4246(5), subsection A. 2, collective bargaining, USW, which is United States Steelworkers. And this has to be a roll call. So is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Trombley,
Aye.
Ms. Cronin,
Aye.
Mr. Rego.
Aye.
And myself in the affirmative. Next, we have Finance Director, Revenues and Expenditures.
Short briefing tonight. We, as you know, February 1st was the deadline for payment of the third quarter taxes. The average January collections is, last 3 years has been 4.256 million. And we exceeded that by 90,000. So it was an average month. We've collected about 350,000 in February. Average February is $1.5 million, so we got about $1.1 million to go, and we fully expect to collect that. Things are going fairly smoothly. The other big thing that's been going on is the audit preparation. We finally received the OPEB actuarial report on Friday, so there are a couple of adjusting entries that need to be done with that, but we'll get that into them on in the next couple of days. And we'll be ready to start whenever they are.
Excellent.
But budget season is well underway. Department heads have all submitted their dream sheets, wish lists, and that sort of thing. We've put it into the spreadsheet, and Brian and I have been starting to review them. We won't have any trouble meeting the February 28th deadline to get it to you folks.
Good to hear. Are there any questions?
Yes, lots of them. Dave, when are we gonna get a cash balance?
Next meeting, I promise.
Yeah, no, it's important. We need to know where we
I
stand.
know it is, but
We really need to know where we stand.
Okay.
Couple of questions on the budget. On the sewer, you haven't had a chance to plug in that sewer?
We're on revenues and expenditures,
Yes, yeah,
okay?
and there's sewer on the revenue.
I did it, but it didn't come out in, that's as of the end of January. I think I changed those a couple of
Mine was
days.
2.5,
A few, huh?
2.5. I got it.
Oh, I give you the,
2.5 one, yeah.
okay.
So you ended up taking out of the general and.
Yeah,
putting it- You did?
Yeah.
And then that amount that was in the sewer amount that
550.
you changed that also?
Yep.
But it's funny, it didn't reflect this here.
I might have done it a couple of days after that.
Okay.
Good.
Okay.
I just had one.
Mr. Tromley.
Did you have more, did you have more? Mr.
Well, are we gonna talk about the things that are that are gonna go over budget?
No, we're on number one, revenues and expenditures. We're allowing a council member to have a question or two.
Okay.
And
go ahead.
then the next council member can ask a question. And then so on. Mr. Tromley.
I just wanted to thank you, David. I see in the revenues and expenditures, you did highlight, as I had requested at the previous meeting, those spendings that were not non-discretionary, if I'm interpreting that correctly. So I just wanted to thank you for doing that. I know it couldn't have been easy, but it does very much help me understand.
The
where-
department heads did that.
Well, thanks
Yeah.
also to the department heads as well.
Yeah.
Any other questions for FD1? Okay, now we have FD2, discussion on report from department heads regarding line items that may go over budget.
Yeah.
Yes, Mr. President, I believe you have a spreadsheet which highlights some of the line items that we anticipate going over budget. The first one is computer services line item. You may recall last, I believe it was June, I might have mentioned to you, I did mention that the wrong amount had been budgeted for this line item, and we anticipated this fiscal year that it would be over budget towards the end of the fiscal year. That line item includes our day-to-day internet, computer access, that our email and those types of things. That averages is about $6,600 a month. And it was under budgeted last year at that time. That also includes the website, renewal of the website, and those are contractual. We have contracts with Packet Logic and also Revise, who is doing our website.
So fortunately or unfortunately, all of this information is for informational purposes only, because there are no actions that the council can actually take right now to move things around. But it's a good heads up when the date comes down the line with the budget, the final budget, as we close out the year. Hopefully, we'll be able to figure out where we can draw this money without it coming from the general fund. Hopefully, Mr. Reagan.
I'm a little confused. I thought the purpose of tonight's meeting was for ask permission to go over funding, because they're anticipating going over funding, and where the funds were gonna come from.
No. It's informational only. That would take place probably in April or May. When
So what
we-
happens if they go over budget?
We have to hopefully have other funding in other lines that we can put into there. If not, it's going to come out of the general fund.
So, Tony, maybe you can correct me because I'm under the understanding that when you set up budget dollar amounts, that before they can go over budget, they have to ask permission from the council. Am I wrong in thinking that?
No, that's correct.
So isn't tonight's purpose where they identify where they're gonna go over budget? And before they go over budget, we give them permission? I thought that was the whole purpose.
I didn't read it that way because there's not, I mean, these are contracts. There's nothing, we have to pay them.
Well, I don't know if I agree with that. I think that when the department head knows that they're gonna go over budget, that they're supposed to come prior to it happening and asking permission, and we make a determination whether they're gonna spend more or not.
Okay, but I think it depends on what exactly we're talking about.
No, I mean,
This line
there
item
are
of computer
times,
services.
there are times when there's an emergency, and I understand that, but if there's not an emergency and you know way ahead of time that you're gonna go over, this is the council's budget. So we make a determination whether they're gonna spend more or not.
Well, I'm looking at the sheet. And none of these budgets are overspent now, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So this is to put you on notice that there's gonna be some issues with these particular line items.
Right, well, we do have items in the budget that have been overspent. If you wanna
Yeah.
go through it real quick, we can do that.
I don't believe so.
They're gonna change over the next few months. Too.
Do you want him to continue down?
No, let's just talk about this a minute.
I know, but we're only on one.
May I, Mr.
Go ahead.
President?
We've got all
ahead.
of these.
May I, Mr. President,
Please.
while Councilman Rigo is comporting, figuring out where he wants to look. I just had a quick question. It looks like under the last one, financial outside services, that there's already a negative balance. So is that already over budget? In which case, does action tonight?
That
Appropriate?
was the accounting assistance that the council told me to acquire to help with the audit. And that's what we did, and that's where it is.
So it's already been approved and factored in. We don't have to take any action on that tonight.
Well, I have to find the money sometime in the next few months,
Again,
and I will.
let's go back. Before you overspent, you should have came to the council and said, hey, I'm gonna go over, can I have permission to go over? That's the way the process works. It's always worked that way, and that's the proper way. If not, everybody can spend whatever they want, and they come back and say, hey, I'm sorry, I overspent it. It doesn't work that way.
Council told me to.
This
For
was
that
a,
particular.
this
Contract.
item specifically has to do with outside services.
No, I understand, and maybe at the time, maybe you gave permission, but again, that's the way the process works. You don't overspend and then say, hey, I have to overspend. It doesn't work that way. Prior to you getting to that point, and we're 7 months into the process, and I see things at 70–80%. So if you're at 70–80%, you know you're gonna go over. You're supposed to come to us and say, listen, I'm gonna go over, can I go over? And this is where the funds are gonna come from. And that's the way the process works. Tony, correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, I'm assuming that your next meeting on this, first as it's noticed, you're gonna ask for permission to overspend on these line items and the reason why, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, because again, you pointed out these, but there's plenty more in the budget that are close to that amount,
Let me expand on your question, though. Is this an ordinance?
Part of the charter.
That's what I'm asking. That's my next question. I don't remember it by line. So if anyone has any other questions while Mr. DeSisto looks. Or why don't you continue? Sewer.
So sewer plant operations. That one is going to be, we anticipate that one to be over budget by 276,000. That again was underfunded. We spend for sewer plant operations approximately $66,000 a month for that particular thing. Most of that is electricity and gas, almost $240,000 so far this year in electricity and gas. I did have a conversation with Eric. Eric thinks that that there's something wrong there. We are going to go over the charges that have come in from Rhode Island Energy on that and make sure that they're correct.
Mr.
But
Kamiga, you're here.
so far,
Do you have anything you want to add to this? Because you are our sewer plant personnel, and we don't want any wrong positions put out there.
Just historically, the electrical charges that come through that facility, we were used to seeing 10,000 a month, which equates to about 120,000 a year. Where it's at already at this point just doesn't make any sense. I mean, even, the cost of electricity has gone up, but let's say it's 15,000 a month. That's 180,000 for the year. So something just doesn't seem right at this point. We are operating very lean at that plant. We have the process running. We've cut energy costs big time. So I just think we need to look at those charges and kind of, not just take Rhode Island Energy's word that this is what it is.
Right. Mr. Rego.
I thought I saw a bill for $27,000. Does that sound right for the plant?
For a month?
Yeah.
It sounds pretty steep. Now, granted, those energy costs are impacted by rain events. Any kind of rain are going to cause those pumps to ramp up, the blowers to ramp up. So there's always going to be a correlation between wet weather and increased energy costs. I don't know when that 27,000
It's
was.
been a month ago. I asked for a copy of all the bills because I was just
Well, we
curious.
had some decent
and
rain,
I
but
was
even
pretty
that
amazed.
seems steep to
Yeah.
me.
but you are correct. It's 27, 29,000,
Yeah.
26,000 that we've paid to Rhode Island Energy. So.
And that's why, we take for granted these utility bills. It's good to keep an eye on because it could be a mistake. And unless you monitor it on a monthly basis, you don't realize it, so.
And that brings us to a good point. We had not the easiest time creating a budget last year because in many ways, we didn't know where we were. We didn't know what the ground we were standing on was solid. And what we have figured out is that former manager and former treasurer were using a line item of $550,000 to draw off of multiple expenses. So we've identified that and we're correcting that problem, right? Moving forward, we're going to figure out what those line items are. So this next budget will be a better appreciation of where the money's going, right?
Yes, so for example, plant operations, we'll have a breakdown of exactly what goes into plant operations. We've already started that. As I said, the electricity and gas is the biggest. Yeah, and then next is chemicals for the plant. So, and then there are the day-to-day operations, that need to take place down there. But those are very.
Mr. Rego,
It
if
looks
you're
like
asking
a-
for a question.
It looks like the past couple of years, it's always been 550, that amount.
Correct.
It hasn't
That's,
been increased, no.
Has not been increased, but last year, if you remember last year, it was overdrawn last year.
yes.
And I believe the year before as well, that was so.
For those of you who don't know or don't remember, refresher. We got rid of the sewer commission years ago, changed how things were done down there, and maybe it fell in the cracks, but the town manager took on the sewer plant. And when things are going great, it's easy. You're getting all the information. Problem comes out, as you know, when you're a numbers guy, when all of a sudden you have personnel change, when all of a sudden you have some problems. We had the $20 million bond, we had the rebuild. And last year we had our fiscal hit. So we're gonna come out of this better, but we've exposed a few lines that
And Joe.
aren't the best. And Mr. Rego, please.
I'm a numbers guy. I look at these numbers all the time, but the way that these numbers are presented to us, it's not on a month-to-date basis. So it's hard to tell, hey, was it 27 a month before? I think the way we are presenting this needs to change in order for us to be, for us to monitor on a more easily basis.
Yes, please, Mr. DeSisto.
Okay, Councilman Rego is referring to section 3.12 of the town charter. Town council has financial responsibility for the town. Town council has to review all non-budgeted or over-budgeted expenses. And the town council, only the town council is authorized by majority vote to authorize over expenditure of budgeted line items. Section 18.05 also says that the town council approval is needed to cover over expenditures. So under section 3.12, that's supposed to be on a monthly basis.
Yeah.
I think that's where you're getting that point, because it's in the charter section.
I'm sorry I made you look
3.12.
it up. I had it here.
What's that?
I'm sorry I made you look it up. I had it right
Yeah, why
here.
didn't you tell me when I asked?
You want to
So-
keep me on my toes.
So I don't believe anything has been spent over budgeted yet.
There are items here that have gone over budget. So those are things that we're gonna have to address next month. I don't expect you to do it today. But this has to be, and I've seen, you know what? Over the years, I've watched people on TV and I've seen it happen time and time again where somebody comes up, oh, I'm sorry, I went over. That's not the way the process works. The way the process, you're supposed to look at it on a month to date, on a monthly basis. And if you think you're gonna go over, you're supposed to explain why you're going over and how much you need and where the funds are coming from.
And we do that.
Mr.
It almost seems like you're saying that we're not following the charter, kind of.
Yeah, exactly what I'm saying. And he just confirmed it. We've all confirmed.
But
it
we
right there.
haven't done that.
Well, we have, he just mentioned the financial outside services. Well,
We're not there yet.
okay.
We're going down the list,
Go ahead,
Mr.
Joe.
Rego.
No, fine.
Honestly,
No, again, I
if
just
you're
think-
truly telling this council that we've broken the law, I would have appreciated a phone call. And if this is the way you want to go about it, have at it.
Joe, I'm not, it's
It's what
right
you
here.
are saying.
You got the budget right here. You see
Correct.
things that are going over.
And you're
So,
saying that
that
we
we should
have
be-
taken action without a vote and without knowing. That's what you're saying. That's what you're saying.
No, actually, you're not there yet.
Correct. But he's saying
What I'm
that
saying
we've
is-
already done this.
I think what the point is that from here on out, on a monthly basis, you need to see what's going on with your expenditures and whether or not there's over expenditures,
Right.
correct?
Yes.
And, but I'm glad that I won't be in an election. Or these guys think they're in one tomorrow, but it's in 4 years and neither of us are gonna be your opponents.
Excuse me, that was uncalled for.
No, it wasn't. Some of the
No, I
items.
think so too.
Well, think about what you're
I
saying.
really, well, what I'm saying is we need to do things right. And if we haven't been doing right till now, we're gonna start now. That's all. I'm
Thank
not
you.
trying to throw anybody under the bridge,
Okay.
you know?
And what I was referring to is looking at a auditor general report of,
Yes, I understand what you were referring to,
Thank you.
Mr. President. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Now, my question is, just to clarify, this sewer plant, Operation Computer Services, the two that we've gotten through so far have not been overspent, but they are expected to be overspent by the year end, which is June 30th, 2025, correct? And that's why they're coming to us now. So I'm just clarifying that we're not over budget yet, but there's a warning that we might be. We don't take action. And I'm sure that the town manager will investigate as well as the town finance director. Thank you.
Good question, good point. Next,
The next two items are, thank you. Lifeguards and rec supervisors. Again, those are not over budgeted or overspent right now. But it's anticipated. But there's also the Parks and Rec director has money in other accounts that she will be able to, with your permission, change to cover those expense overages. The court computer services. So that is a function of the traffic tickets that are issued by the police for municipal court. And every time we have a contract, and the contract gives us 1,000 tickets for free, so to say, not really free, but it's included in the contract, right? If you go over the 1,000 tickets, then you are charged $5 for each ticket after that. We have gone over 1,000 tickets. In fact, we're close to 2,000 tickets for the period that this contract ran. And so we anticipate that because of the number of tickets that we'll be issuing the next several months, we average probably about 300 tickets a month. Some months, I believe last month there was like 600 tickets that were issued. We're going to have to pay an additional fee, and we anticipate that to be about $4,500 right now.
So right now we have an over expenditure.
We do not. Right now, we have $368 in that account.
So a question, if we have a contract that allows us a finite number and anything we go over will cost us more, is there a next level of contract we can get? Is this a normal amount? Or has the amount of tickets that we're generating in town just sort of incrementally increased and we should change our contract so we can get a better deal on the number, we can maybe get a higher threshold?
So there is, from the contract that I say, there's no higher threshold. It's like 1 to 1,000 is included in your contract. If you go above 1,000, then it's $5 a ticket. If you go above 2,000, it goes down to $4 a ticket. So it goes down how much you have to pay depending on the number of tickets, but
there's not.
but there's no, yeah, we can't get the premium plan, so to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Isn't there an offset with the?
But it does generate revenue for it. Yeah,
Right.
Right.
So we have a line item to pay this from, is what you're saying.
Well, that money goes into the general fund, the fees and fines that are
Oh, that
collected.
goes directly in?
It goes in directly
Alright.
into the
So
general fund,
that's where
yes.
it'll come
Yeah.
from.
Public Works, over time, it's anticipated that we are going to go over that because of a couple of different things. That line item was cut. We use that for our holiday, putting up lights and things like that for holiday display. And we've had a couple of snowstorms. Unfortunately, the snowstorms occurred on the weekends and at night. We did have one that happened during the day, so we were okay with that one. But and it's anticipated that that line item will go over as well.
Brian, forgive me, because I'm looking at the transfer station tipping fees. We're at 75%. Does that look like something we'll go over?
That's gonna go over. That goes over every year, but it's the number's incorrect, I think. And Dave and I are looking into it. There's a charge from last year on this year's account for that, so we have to look at why. It's an additional $35,000 charge that should have been on last year's money, not this year's. So it's anticipated to go over about 40,000, depending on how much trash we throw away. So that's kind of really out of our control. We can't control how much trash is being.
But the numbers you can control, and you should be looking at it on a monthly basis. Is this something all the department heads look at the budget on a monthly basis to confirm these numbers are accurate or not accurate?
Yeah, I mean, this bill comes from the landfill to the finance office. It's, the numbers are accurate from what we're dumping to what we're being
All right.
charged. We
But
can't.
you
change
said,
the numbers.
you just said you noticed that there was a mistake there.
So I noticed when I went into it, I don't pay that bill. Like I said, that bill comes straight out of the finance office. I noticed that bill is charged to the wrong, because I anticipated it being about 60-70%, not as high as it was, so I wanted to go in and look. And that's when I noticed with Dave, that wasn't right.
And I guess that's my point. And that's why on a monthly basis, everyone should be looking at their budget, and it should be a month to date so you have a better idea, and it should be questioned, just like we just talked about the electricity at the sewer plant. It could be an issue. It might not even be the bill. It might be the way they're billing. So if you're not looking at it on a monthly basis, and if it goes by 3-4 months, it's hard to figure out. That's why on a monthly basis, it doesn't take too long to look at a budget and say, hey, something doesn't look right. That's what I'm saying.
So the department heads do get the revenues and expenditures every month. They do. And they're supposed to look at them. One of the, and the electricity at the sewer plant, that doesn't go to the sewer plant. It comes directly to the town with all of the other electric bills. So the sewer plant didn't even see that. And to be honest with you, I didn't even see it
And-
because it goes into finance and then it's paid, it's divvied up into each individual, whether it's a building or department to pay their electricity.
And Dave
So-
wouldn't have known. Dave wouldn't have known. He's paying the bill. So that's the problem. Eric would know, but Dave wouldn't know.
Right,
and it goes
if
directly
there
to
was,
him.
yes, if there was an outlier, right, if there's something out of whack with it, yes.
I guess we need better communications. That's all it is.
And
Mr. Charles.
Better accounting system.
And we're working on that, getting the software.
Is it fair to say on the Public Works overtime item that the majority of overtime is for snow removal during the winter season?
So we, previous years, it's been broken down between three different overtimes.
Mhm.
All said and done, we lost 27,000 in budget cuts from last year to this year.
Understood.
Just an example, this last weekend storm was $14,736 in overtime.
Mhm.
So depending on the timing of the storms is how much it's gonna cost us. A typical standing event isn't nearly as much money, but a storm that hits on a Saturday into a Sunday is going to be a lot of money. So we can't really determine. I will say the holiday festival is about $7,000. So between two storms, that made up two events, that makes up what you would cut basically. So it just depends on how bad of a winter you get. And, we're kind of in a bad stretch of, freeze, thaw. So a lot of fallouts in the middle of the night. So.
All right, thank you.
Again, what you're talking about is right on,
Yeah, I know.
kind of, because the budget.
Couldn't let it go. Yeah, I'm doing that
I
kind.
needed you this year
Yeah,
because the
couldn't let it
budget creation, Louis, last year
Again,
was so difficult trying to figure out how to cut and keep a budget together that's realistic. And you're gonna be valuable this year because it was hard. As he says, we cut 27,000.
well, again, I think that, we have to do a better job of seeing what's in front of us, and
Mhm.
everyone needs to be educated on it, so everyone can.
You are correct. Next, the last one that you'll have action on.
The finance outside services, that is the paying
Outside
for
financial
the
services.
vendor to assist in the audit, getting everything ready for the audit, yes.
And you need $1,603 to cover that bill?
Yeah. I'll find that.
We have to make a
Oh,
motion.
you
Have to
will?
have a motion for that.
So we have to make a motion to have you find it.
Okay.
So is there a motion?
I will make a motion.
Second.
So the motion is to give you permission to find the $1,603 and pay the bill.
And next month, if there's anything that's close or gone over, please let us know.
We're gonna update this every month. So things will be added, guaranteed.
And again, it's very important to cash balance sheet next month, so. Especially going into the school financing, very important. Everyone knows where we stand.
Yes. Next, solicit, thank you, gentlemen, unless you have anything else. Discussion and action, oh no, I did that. Public Works, sorry. My check marks are delayed. Discussion and action, update, action regarding RIDOT South Main Street Improvement Plan, Public Works Director. More paper.
This is the landscape plans with some colors.
Thank you.
So I gave you the landscape plans because the full set's almost 80 pages and I don't think you wanted all that. But quickly looking through the landscape plans, more of a finite number. So anything in red that you see when you get to the actual plans, which I believe is the 7th page in. The first page, Joe, you just passed it. It has no, there's no trees coming out on that first section. But then as you kind of go along through the next 8 pages, 9 pages, There's red indicators that are showing where the trees are coming out. Where you see the circles on those plans are where new trees are going in or existing trees are staying. And they've kind of put a bump out of what the tree is that's going in, and there is a little bit of a chart in the front. So
Forgive me, Brian, I don't know what the hell I'm looking at. I really don't.
So
You know what you're looking at?
the total count was 32 trees are coming out, 64 going in.
What page is it?
Spread as evenly as possible throughout the plan. That was one of our concerns.
This is like from Maggie to go Jacob's Point.
210.
Even forward. Go ahead.
Oh, I see it now. Thank you, Brian.
So, there are, as the weather changes and we can get outside, I do plan on walking with the tree commission, the tree warden. Just by chance, your tree warden is the one that did the survey of all these trees. So he was contracted by RIDOT previously to do the survey of the trees for them or by the company Garofalo. So he knows all about the trees that are being indicated to come down and where they're replacing them. A couple of other things with this project that you don't have on yours, but I just wanted to kind of let you know. They are doing some drainage repair from the town line. And that stops at about Beach. That's kind of where they've indicated from Beach on is decent, so they're not going to go any further than there. But they're going to be doing as much spot drainage repairs as they can. They are not increasing capacity, they are just fixing existing.
Yeah, they're all full.
So right now, most of them have, they've found out that they're collapsed. They've got,
The water
root
runs
systems
right
in them.
off.
So they're going to be replacing them with the same size, but new basins all around.
Okay.
Sure, Mr. Rego.
So there was two areas. One was where Jacob's Point, I think it was Jacob's Point, and the other area was where the old J tree was. It's okay to say the old J tree. You don't know where the old J tree is, but
Beach Street.
Beach Street. Are those the two areas that you're saying that they're gonna look at?
So the drainage repairs end at Beach. The Jacobs Point, I believe that's the Village Road area.
He's referring,
yeah,
yes, he's
yes.
referring to everything going south.
Yeah.
So yes, you're correct.
Yes, so Village Road that's a separate pipe that goes across. We've been working with the local garage on trying to clean that and address that, but there is other drainage in that area they're
So
replacing.
they will be addressing it when they redo the road.
I don't know if they're gonna address that particular section, because that is also, for whatever reason, considered a bridge from in that backyard across Main Street is considered a bridge. So there is portions of that they're gonna touch, but they haven't got in depth with that part yet.
Question for you. Is there a mechanism to force them to address that issue? I mean, it makes no sense for us to fix something only to know that there's a problem underneath. Do we have, what legislators or representatives have any?
So they're not gonna add to this project because they're already at the budget, and anything that we ask them to change on this project could cause this to not happen. And be
Which is
canceled
kind of what
altogether.
happened to Market Street.
So one of the things that I've kind of brought up already, last week I was told this is they know there's an ordinance that says replace with granite curbing. They're asking to replace with as is because like for like, if it's a concrete curb, they want to replace it with a concrete curb. If it's granite, they want to replace it with granite. If we told them to go all granite, it's a $7 million increase on their project, which would cause them to basically
700,000.
It's
700,000, which would cause them to go over and say they're not going to do this. So, there's a couple of concerns in there about pushing too hard on a project that we're not paying for, that we need done desperately. So, I have the full set in my office for anybody that wants to come by and look at it. I just didn't want to print out 78 pages for everybody, and I couldn't send it because it's too large of a file. So we have all the full set. I can get large sets made so that you have a full size set, and we can go over plan by plan, but this project's at 90%, so they're going to be working towards starting this spring. They're still kind of working in conjunction with Rhode Island Energy and Bristol County Water to make sure that the utilities are done prior to them starting any road work. The first step that is going to happen when they do come in is they will remove the 34 trees or 32 trees. That's step one. Another thing that's been brought up is the steps to nowhere right now, and a lot of the front properties that are in the right of way. those steps to nowhere were asked if we wanted to keep them or if we wanted them to go away. I think we've decided that myself and Matt are gonna kind of drive around to make sure we see which ones are potentially issues that are, over 3 steps or whatever could cause problems, because ideally we don't want anything that could cause any more litigation.
Yeah, and Mr. DeSisto, should that be referred to the trust? Have somebody look at these, because they're in no man's land.
Process that they have is, should be the first step. Second step would be to contact them.
Okay.
I'm just gonna say, in the future, do you think we could just see this on the screen instead of you printing all this?
Yeah, I wanted to do that today. I'm stuck in a playground class, so I didn't realize it was till 5 o'clock, so I was not
Again,
able
just a
to
suggestion.
pull that up. I apologize.
Okay.
So there's a lot, as soon as I get a more definitive start date, that will be pushed out to everybody. We will try to provide updates on our website for this project because it's going to be so large. This isn't, this is not a 1-season project. This is expected to be at least 18 months. So just, we kind of got to keep in mind that the trees going back in are going to be the last part of it. One of the talks that we had about potentially planting trees in the private property, RIDOT prefers not to do that. They have designed the sidewalks and their little right-of-way areas to allow the trees to be planted without interfering with the ADA compliance. So they want them in their right-of-way so that they have the warranty and they have the ability to monitor it. So we can still plant more trees for anybody that wants them, working with the tree commission, but we're not gonna have RIDOT do it.
Mr. Trombley, any questions regarding maybe bus stops?
Not this time. Thank you, though.
All right.
The additional, I did notice in this plan, though, there is 2 new beacons going in on crosswalks. Maybe Quirk, which we've talked about, and it looks like Hope and Maine's getting one as well. According to
And-
these,
And hopefully we can contact the Times. I'm sure they'll help us getting the word out, as well as
Perhaps
social media on a
You want me
statement
back? Might as
that
well take them. I'm
people
not gonna
will
need 'em.
hopefully see. At least our app and all, so. Next, we have discussion and action regarding request for a resolution in support of amending state law relating to highways and sidewalks.
so this is something you guys already know about. You've talked about it at the legislation meeting that you had with our local reps, but this was brought to us by Coventry. And just a quick little background, it's basically stating how, restating the mandate from the state of Rhode Island that we manage all state sidewalks once they've been put in. Many local communities are facing a shortfall on their funding, obviously. We had $0 put towards curbing and sidewalks and even roads this year. We had a little bit of ARPA funds that we used to finish some roads, but we had no money towards sidewalks. The state receives all the funding for the sidewalks. They get the curb cut fees, they get everything, and then we have to maintain it. So it seems a little unfair. This is the, I believe, 7th year that this bill is going to go to the State House and hopefully get somewhere. Coventry and the rest of the Public Works Association has just asked if municipalities would send a resolution in support of the bill.
Brian, is this the same as we got from the Rhode Island cities and towns? I think it was a little different because Rhode Island cities and towns said they were all gonna clean it once. Annually, I think that's.
So this one,
Brian's referring to is S57, which would make it so that the amended language as all maintenance of sidewalks along state highway shall be the responsibility of the state, with the exception of snow and ice removal on those sidewalks. That's what the law says.
Right, the other one that we had that they presented to us, that said they would clean it annually. This one doesn't say that, so
This
I
is just the state would be responsible for the maintenance. The earlier question was who has the liability on it. If this law passes, that liability would be transferred to the state.
So this is the one we like.
I think they're looking at maintenance and cleaning as different. We're
Right.
looking at maintenance as fixing if it's broken, potholes.
My concern is, and I brought this up before, is that we get back into that It's the state's problem, it's the town problem, and me as a taxpayer that pays the state and the town, nobody cleans it up. That's what I don't want.
Yeah, and I mean, I completely understand where you come from. I look at it as we have no funding for our own sidewalks at the moment, never mind state roads, and then they come down and tell us you have to do it while they've received all the funding for it. So, you know, if they wanted to give us money, I think we would probably be a lot more open to cleaning their sidewalks and fixing them, but
So what Ryan's asking you to do is to ask that the resolution be drafted, which is form language, to support S57. I don't think there's a companion bill in the House. If there is, I'll double check that. But just to authorize the resolution to be drafted, supporting this legislation, and authorize the town council president to sign it.
Clearly, Mr. DeSisto knows the language. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Question, point of order, just, is this similar to Mr. Rigo's earlier motion? Is this where we don't want to vote on it until we have a copy of the resolution in front of us?
No, you know why? What the earlier one was, that was to actually submit legislation that you haven't seen yet. That's why I'm hesitating.
I see.
On this one, the bill is already in.
Understood. Thank
You
you.
know what the language is, we can go from there.
Thank you.
And is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
That's it.
Please,
Next step.
Yeah, we're gonna be next. Jim, are you here for anything specific? Once the door is open. Go ahead. So welcome back. We're out of executive session. And can we have a motion?
I will make a motion for the solicitor, manager, and DPW director to proceed as directed.
There a second?
Did you seal the minutes?
Oh, and motion to seal the minutes.
Did you have a motion to come out of executive session?
Well, no.
You didn't say that.
So
I'll make a motion to come out of executive session.
thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next motion, seal
Seal
the
the
minutes
ex-
from executive session.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. And then motion to direct the solicitor, manager, and DPW director to proceed as directed
In executive
in
session.
executive session.
And is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Is there a
Mo-
motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
The best we've been all night.
Yeah.
5 minutes.